This is Atomic Shinobi, and today I'm going to narrate second part of What If Naruto Was Trained by His Future Self. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
At last, the Chunin exam's second test was over. In fact, they had passed and were prepared for the final exam, which was in 2 weeks. Naruto and Kakashi were currently trailing the third Hokage to his office. As they strolled leisurely through the village, Kakashi was reading a particular book and Hokage was introducing himself to passers-by. Naruto moaned to himself, "Man, I don't have a single clone active right now. What makes the elderly man want to speak with me? Damn it, I want to train." He looked over his sensei's shoulder. And why was Kakashi sensei required to emerge? They had arrived at the Sandame's office many moments later, as the Hokage was in no hurry at all. The elderly man quickly found a seat and fixed his gaze on the Junin and Genin in front of him. "Congratulations, Naruto-kun. You've made it through the second test," he began. "I, however, have something I wanted to talk to you about." Obviously, Kakashi grinned, responding to the blonde's quiet complaint. "It has come to my attention that you have encountered a certain shinobi during your stay in the Forest of Death." The fire leader began. "One Mitarashi Anko has notified me." The Genin said, "Ah, that examiner woman, right?" He lied, feigning a frown and disappointment. "Yeah, but we've barely fought as she made it there before I could even have a crack at him. That guy seemed pretty strong, too." "Guy? What did he look like?" "Peef. The way he moved and spoke, it reminded me of a snake." He abruptly snapped one finger. "That Enko chick. You once said there are 2 women who could teach me how to deal with genjutsu, right? Isn't she one of them?" The Sandame sighed and scowled a little at Naruto's method of switching topics. "Yes, she is, but unfortunately, she has a busy schedule. Now, what else can you tell from your experiences in the Forest of Death?" Why are you asking me, old man? All I did was run after my teammates. Are you asking these questions to every genin?" He shook his head, the elderly man. "No, you're the only one who has encountered Orochimaru, besides Anko." When the snake that escaped from Naruto was mentioned, he did not allow his eyes to narrow with rage. "Who's Orochimaru?" "He is a former Konoha shinobi, one of the legendary Sannin, to be exact. Quite powerful. He is also a former student of mine. He has betrayed Konoha and has probably infiltrated our village and the Chunin exams to do damage to us. If he has told you anything, it would be helpful if you told us." With a sideways head tilt, Naruto pretended to reflect on the past few days. "No, all he did say was that he did not have time to deal with a genin like me." "I see." A sigh signaled that the topic had been covered. "Kakashi told me something interesting. You can create a clone that only the Sharingan can see?" With a tight lip lock, Naruto gave his sensei a shady glance. He pointed and said, "You snitch," before turning back to face the Hokage. He looked up thoughtfully. "Yeah, I call it the Fuinbunshin. But I found out not only the Sharingan can see it. Or maybe it's the only thing that can see it." "What do you mean?" inquired Kakashi. "I found out that Mut Kiba can smell and Hyuga Hinata, she could see the chakra for the jutsu, but not the Bunshin itself. And Shino, his bugs could apparently sense me, somehow. It makes sense. Their team is specialized in tracking. Looking and identifying chakra is what they do best. They only get better as they grow more experienced." The third clarified. "But that means you have used the Fuinbunshin during your Chunin exam." "A very clever thing to do, Naruto-kun. I'll venture a guess," Kakashi began. "When you had to fight that guy in the preliminary test, you already knew his ability?" He scratched the back of his head and exclaimed, "Hey, you can see right through me." "That's it, Naruto-kun. You're fired." The third gave a single nod, and Naruto leapt for the window without delay. He leapt below and said, "Okay, thanks for the chat, old guys. See ya." "Old guys," Kakashi mentally repeated. The copy.nin heard the third chuckle while he was still staring out the window that Naruto had leapt through and said, "Who would have thought? He's using your famous jutsu, Jiraiya." "Ah, precisely. He's becoming really good now." Jiraiya appeared beside the third out of nowhere. Not even Kakashi had sensed him. "I think he'll get the more advanced one, eventually, too. Too bad the Sharingan will always be able to see it." "But Naruto refers to it as the Fuinbunshin. What was the name you gave it again?" The third grinned at his pupil. The toad hermit proudly folded his arms and exclaimed, "Che! I proudly call it the Tauten no Jutsu." "Ah yes, the peeking technique." Naruto was immediately confronted by the Sand Team as soon as he touched down in front of the Hokage Tower entrance. With narrowed eyes, soon as Jinchuriki approached the blonde and began, "Uzumaki Naruto. I have arrived," he uttered hesitantly. "We need to talk, in private. There are things you don't know." Though Tamari and Kankuro appeared uncertain, they were aware of what their younger brother wished to convey to the blonde. The two were very appreciative of Naruto because they were his siblings and they both loved Gaara. They would stand by Gaara if he wanted to say something, anything at all, to Naruto. Regardless of the price. In private, Naruto asked, sensing that Gaara was keeping an eye on them. "Is there someone from Suna observing them? Or a Konoha resident?" Placing his left hand on Gaara's shoulder, he sealed with his other, saying, "I understand, Hireishin." Both Tamari and Kankuro appeared stunned that the two Jinchuriki had disappeared. "That kid. He's not normal," exclaimed Kankuro. "I wonder where he took Gaara." Kankuro. I trust him." Her brother's expression intensified in stupor. "I don't know how or why, but I trust Uzumaki Naruto completely." Gazing at his sister, the puppeteer let out a sigh. "I don't blame you." "Where are we?" "We are in the Wave Country." "The Wave? Where?" Gaara asked, looking a little queasy at the Hireishin's abrupt movement. He staggered to his feet and managed to move forward 2 steps. "Without the Shukaku, I am much more vulnerable. My body will need to be trained." The Wave Country lies close to the edge of Fire Country. He looked at Naruto in disbelief, realizing they were miles away from their previous location. "You can move around this fast?" "Yes, but it needs certain requirements to work," the blonde said, giving the red the thumbs up. The two were in the forest where Naruto had trained for his first major mission, where he had to battle Haku and Zabuza. "But we can talk here." "No one's here," the boy said. After glancing around warily, the son of the Kazekage nodded and turned to face Naruto. "Uzumaki Naruto. Our Kazekage, my father." He began, but it appeared that he was having difficulty expressing himself. He leaned against a tree behind him and said, He will attack your leader, during the final test of the Chunin exam. Alongside Otto, the Sound Village, our village will try and destroy Konoha." Furious at Gaara, Naruto remained silent. "I am telling you this, because, I am in your debt. I do not want to destroy Konoha anymore. You have taken away a great pain, a pain that never seemed to end." He stopped for a moment. "You should know, that as a Jinchuriki, we have control over great powers. I can release the Shukaku completely. This has changed since you've used the Gogyu Fuin on me. I cannot release the Shukaku now. Even if I could, I wouldn't. Only my siblings know this. The plan to take over Konoha lies mainly on my shoulders. Without their trump card, the Shukaku, Konoha will survive this." Sat on the ground was Naruto's choice. "You said you wanted me to be your ally. If our villages are enemies, it would be hard for us to be allies. I wish to fight on your side. I care not for my father. And your brother and sister? They will support me, as they have said?" The blonde man nodded his head slowly. "Can't you talk to your father?" Naruto watched Gaara glare at the ground and said, "That is an impossibility. I have never talked to my father before. Since I can remember, my father, the Kazekage, has ordered assassinations on me. Since I have the Shukaku sealed inside me, I was to be Suna's weapon. But being Shukaku's Jinchuriki meant certain changes. I was unstable. I became uncontrollable to my father, so he saw it fit to see me dead. Your father, yes. I have no love for my father as he does not hold any for me. I believe my siblings feel the same way." In the brief silence that followed, one of them was thinking about the past and the other was considering ways to stop it all from happening. A few minutes after that. "So, there's actually nothing we can do but let them believe you are still in contact with Shukaku?" With brevity, Gaara answered, "Correct. The attack will begin during one of the matches, so be wary of all sound and sand shinobi." "Maybe. I know one sound shinobi who I can talk to," Naruto said, narrowing his eyes. Naruto entered his apartment and instantly entered Sage mode after giving Gaara back to Tamari and Kankuro. In the village, he could locate every chakra source while in Sage mode. Maybe he could identify a specific Kinuda Dosu. The blonde growled as he continued to search. "This has all gone to hell fast. I should tell the old man all about this, but that would mean for him to find out I've used the Gogyu Fuin on Gaara. Will that be detrimental?" Upon awakening, he discovered the trio of sound genin near the Forest of Death, along with another chakra source that appeared somewhat recognizable. Before someone noticed him, he hurried over to the location and turned off his Sage mode. Naruto maintained his fast speed even when he wasn't in Sage mode. Naruto soon discovered that, while leaping from tree to tree with an arbitrary house in between, he was overlooking 4 genin. Yakushi Kabuto is talking to Sound Genin. What is she doing? After setting up several Fuin Bunshin with seals, they all knew exactly what to do and went up to the 4. He's really not happy about it, the Fuin Bunshin overheard them utter. But you'll find out for yourself. He can't wait to see you. Oh, Dosu, since you're still in the Chunin exams, you won't have to come with us. Run along now, Konoha Genin, who was wearing glasses, replied. Naruto was completely nonplussed. After quickly conjuring up and eliminating it, the Fuin Bunshin was given new instructions to follow Kabuto and those 2 Sound Genin. Naruto materialized behind Dosu just as he was strolling through the village's streets, with Kabuto and the others safely out of reach. Turning around, the ninja with bandages asked, Uzumaki Naruto, right? The Konoha Genin gave Dosu a serious look as he nodded his head, alerting him to a serious problem. He made the decision to remain silent. It was a lose situation to pick a fight with Naruto right now, especially since this was Konoha. Without saying anything, Naruto placed his hand on Dosu's shoulder and smiled sorrowfully, raising his other hand in a palm. Seal gesture. Hiraishin. Naruto thought to himself, quite a busy day, as he made his way slowly towards the Hokage Tower, this time in order to speak with a particular elderly man. The Chunin exam is going to be extremely difficult. The conversation with Dosu had only confirmed everything. I have to fight Sasuke and, of course, kick his ass. But I have to do that and save most of my energy for the attack that is sure to come. His Fuin Bunshin had disclosed that Kabuto was a traitor employed by Orochimaru and that the same person Kabuto was working for was also responsible for the deaths of the 2 Sound Genin. Having seen it all, he was powerless to intervene. After all, his Fuin Bunshin were only supposed to be spectators. But in a short night, he had discovered a lot. But he could offer nothing to support it. Would he be believed by the 3rd? He watched numerous Chunin and Junin walk by him as he climbed the stairs. Every one of them had a mission. They were all employed by the Fire Country, Konoha, and the Hokage. They were all unaware of what lay ahead. How was a mere genin like him supposed to handle all of this? He had already taken the best action in his opinion, but what would the elderly Sarutobi do? At last, he arrived at the doors leading to the Hokage. 2 Junin were standing in front of that door. He was unaware of their names. One had long light brown hair and wore spectacles. The other had black hair and a senbon in his mouth. The one with the needle in his mouth, Genma, said, "Ah, Hokage. Sama is busy right now, kid. You should know you can't just walk in at a time like this. Besides, shouldn't you be sleeping?" As promised, the Hokage would typically only see people who had scheduled meetings with him days or earlier during the night. Nor was the secretary who worked there during the day. Thus, these 2 Junin stood sentry at the entrance. To their astonishment, as well as Naruto's, Jiraiya abruptly opened the door and passed by Genma and Aoba. The person with the dark hair and glasses. He gave a quick nod to Genma and Aoba before grabbing Naruto by the shoulder and saying, "Yo, kid? Long time no see. You need to see the old man? He's really busy right now." With a, "Jiraiya. Sama," Naruto began. He wanted to turn away from Jiraiya, but Jiraiya held him anyway. "I need to tell him, I found out about something. Something really bad." "Not right now you do. If it's really important, though, you can tell me. I'm allowed to see that old man anytime I want, you see?" With a frustrated sigh, Naruto turned to look over his shoulder and saw that Genma and Aoba were still standing guard at the door, chatting. "So I can't get in today?" He was being led away by Jiraiya. "No, you can't. He's busy finding out why that guy you came across in the Forest of Death is here." With wide eyes, Naruto turned to face Jiraiya. "Yeah, I found something out about that guy." Jiraiya gave a head nod. "We'll talk somewhere else." Actually, the 3rd Hokage was occupied with the cursed seal of Mitarashi Anko. She had discovered Orochimaru as well. Days went by, and the Chunin exam's final exam was almost here. Kakashi was the one training Sasuke. Jiraiya was training Naruto, and he was training covertly as well. In actuality, Sakura was training with just one Yamanaka Ino. Their fathers were training Aburame Shino and Nara Shikamaru. In addition, Gaara was training, mostly by himself, though occasionally he would spar with his siblings. Additionally, Rock Lee was training with his sensei Maeda Gai full-time. Kinuta Dosu, the last participant, was also training, but he discovered that most of his time was spent deciphering things. Jiraiya and Naruto were in the Hokage's office 2 days prior to the Chunin exams. This office is protected by several fuinjutsu. Naruto was aware of it already. The third went on. Anything said here will only be heard by the ones actually in this room. Both Jiraiya and Naruto gave a nod of agreement. Naruto.kun, going by your information gathering, I have tightened security around Konoha and around me, considerably. I can't do anything more than that. Doing so would raise suspicions, and if we want to ambush an ambush, we need no such suspicions. Watching him, Jiraiya nodded at Naruto. As for you, you will simply continue the Chunin exams. I assure you, I have competent shinobi all around. You are still just a genin, Naruto.kun. Perhaps a very talented one, but this will be dangerous from here on in. To move forward, her two teammates had to battle with one another. The winner would advance alone. The other would be inconsolable. Sakura was at a loss for what to say or do to them. Of course, she was cheering for Sasuke.kun. After all, he was the boy she loved. However, that would imply that Naruto would undoubtedly lose. After all, nobody could win against Sasuke.kun. How would her blonde teammate respond to that defeat, though? I take it that his dream was to become the next Hokage. A Hokage is the greatest shinobi in their nation and never loses a battle. If he lost this battle, he would be devastated. It was truly unfortunate that he was matched up with Uchiha Sasuke. Sakura was certain that Naruto had matured significantly, but this was the end for the blonde in the Chunin exams. Sakura considered her teammates as she fixed her gaze on the individual in front of her. She was putting a lot of effort into her preparation to take on Yamanaka Ino. Nara Shikamaru, a person with shadow control, would be her opponent. Though Sakura already knew that Ino wouldn't divulge too much about him, Ino was his teammate. It would not be just. One Kage main no jutsu technique was capable of expanding from one point to multiple points. It was the ideal trapping method. Such a jutsu requires quick thinking and total awareness of your surroundings in order to break free. It might end if it's discovered. The word could being used here. What can be done if the Kage main is successful? That was Sakura's main concern. On the day of the last exam, if the third hadn't said those few words, he would have had Fuin Bunshin all over Fire Country. Instead, he has skilled shinobi everywhere. He had to conserve his energy. No, he had to give it his all to keep everyone safe. He would employ his sophisticated Kage Bunshin strategy when the time came, but if the plan he and Gaara had outlined would work, it might not even be required. Naruto. You deaf idiot. Naruto snapped out of his reverie and turned to see Team 8 making their way to the same spot he was. From their team, only Shino is participating in the Chunin exams. He looked up thoughtfully, as if he had suddenly realized something. So everyone from Team 7 made it through. After that, he gave a nod to the group in front of him. Hey. Kiba began. You really need to work on your hearing, man. I never expected you to get this far in the Chunin exams. With a nod, Naruto glanced over at Kurenai, the sensei of Team 8. With a shrug, he turned away from the team and began to walk. The old man still hasn't arranged anything for me considering Genjutsu, and Kurenai. Sensei doesn't want to teach me. It sucks. His rejection by their Junin instructor made him feel even worse than he did for ignoring Kiba in that way. As he turned to leave them, he managed to say, "Good luck, Shino." "Ah, to you as well, Naruto-san." Though he was taken aback to hear Shino was so amiable, he kept walking anyway. As soon as Naruto was out of earshot, Kiba exclaimed, "He's got an arrogant, huh?" With a slow gait, Shino responded, "Not arrogant, but hurt." Kurenai understood, but Kiba did not, adding, "and angry." Moving last was Hinata. Naruto.kun, the girl with blue hair sighed, trailing behind her team. Naruto.kun isn't the same today. As the candidates filed into the stadium's central clearing for the Chunin exam final exam, Hayate Gecko observed them this so. He knew what to expect from each of them because he had watched them all fight before. He had already been impressed by most of these genin. People from all over the nation were crammed into the stadium, eager to watch techniques fly in all directions. It was what Gecko himself was hoping to see. During the preliminary rounds, a few of the genin present hadn't demonstrated much. The Sandaime made the decision to keep all he had discovered over the previous few weeks from the shinobi beneath him. Actually, only Jiraiya, Tenzo, and Naruto were aware. Tenzo was outside the stadium, giving specific orders to his Anbu squad, while Jiraiya was stationed inside the stadium and Naruto was conducting the Chunin exams. The fire leader also ensured that all Anbu teams were in operation. There were 3 Anbu teams stationed in the forests surrounding Konoha, 2 in the stadium, and the remaining teams in Konoha itself. Hiruzen sat down, with Raida and Genma defending him. The case cage sat down next to him, with 2 guards encircling him as well. All of the participants were down below, and the referee was setting up the 2 genin who were going to square off right away. Nara Shikamaru versus Haruno Sakura. As he and the other competitors left the battlefield, her blonde teammate exclaimed, "Sakura-chan, you can beat that lazy bastard." If it had mattered to him, he would have claimed to be offended by that statement. Shikamaru, though, wasn't all that fond of anything. Naruto looked around as soon as he arrived at the location where the last few genin taking the Chunin exam were supposed to be waiting. Though he did understand why the Hokage would do so, he had thought it strange to see Anbu so clearly in the open. Gaara watched the fight that had broken out below from the corner of her eye. He had made the decision not to speak with Naruto because he knew it would cause suspicions. Dosu, who was standing close to the railing, also made the same decision. Though Naruto wasn't entirely certain about the sound genin, he was aware that he was respected. Their conversation was quite engaging. "Retrograde. Where are we?" Dosu leapt back a little and glanced to the left and right while Naruto watched. The blonde could tell he had no idea where they were, based on his bewildered demeanor. "Don't worry about where we are, Dosu-san." Dosu stood in front of Naruto, getting ready. "Besides, we're just here to talk, we're not here to fight." He shrugged. "I'm just a shadow clone. If you even touch me once, there's no way you're getting back to Konoha in time for the last test of the Chunin exams." Dosu's single visible eye grew larger. "We're that far from Konoha?" he asked, attempting to decipher Naruto's facial expressions to determine whether the Konoha.nin was playing a bluff. He also said, You're serious," a few seconds later. "And this is no genjutsu either." "Dosu-san, I am aware of Orochimaru's strategy to launch an attack on my village," he began, disregarding Dosu's startled reaction and his retreating step. Rather than facing Dosu, Naruto turned around. "I feel like I can trust you, Dosu. I have witnessed how Yakushi Kabuto, if that is his real name, has killed your 2 teammates. Kin and Zaku, I think their names were." Dosu clenched his fists to calm himself down. "What? They're dead? Orochimaru-sama kills everyone who has failed him. They probably failed him in something." "Ah, so now you have confirmed you do work Orochimaru, and you also know Kabuto. Otto, huh?" Dosu chuckled shortly and uncertainly. "Hey. You're quite a shinobi, so what now? You're going to leave me here?" Naruto answered, also a little unsure, "Not really." He turned to face Dosu, saying, "You're a shinobi who is expendable to Otto, or to Orochimaru. I'm not going to do anything. But I think I can trust you. When this all happens, I'm going to do anything to prevent any of my comrades getting hurt. If you stand in my way and fight with Otto and Suna, I will kill you." Dosu gave a brief cry of surprise. "You even know Otto's with Suna? You know I can tell this to all to Orochimaru?" Naruto nodded once to confirm, "Ah, but I trust you. I am not going to turn traitor so easily, Uzumaki Naruto." Naruto's kind eyes hardened into a glare. "Traitor? But you have no comrades. With no comrades, how can you be a traitor, Dosu-san? If you try to hurt the people I care about, I will not hold back anything. You are a shinobi who can measure a person's strength, right?" They both fell silent for a little while. Naruto sighed and shook his head, saying, "A cage bunshin like me is already strong enough to deal easily with you," he said, laughing sarcastically. "The thing is, I don't want to kill you. I don't want to kill anyone. Think about it, Dosu-san. You might not be able to stop this, but you can surely do something else about it. Here." Dosu fixed his gaze on the scroll that Naruto was presenting to him. "What is that?" "This scroll contains instructions on a technique. A tracking jutsu. It also holds my chakra. Should you feel the need, performing the jutsu will lead you to my location. It can only work if you pour chakra in this scroll while doing the technique." The expression of Naruto was unreadable. "I'll be able to tell when he's adding chakra to it and where his location is thanks to that. I trust Dosu, but not entirely. He's still Otto, a member of a country that seeks to destroy Leaf." Naruto let out one last sigh and rested his hand on Dosu's shoulder. "We're going back. Finish the flashback. So, you scared?" Naruto frowned in response to the abrupt remark from behind him and turned to see that Kakashi and Sasuke had materialized out of thin air. Naruto answered, "Whoa. I totally forgot you were still in the Chunin exams. I didn't even realize he wasn't here earlier." Their Junin instructor shook his head at their teasing, then utilized Shunshin to make himself appear near an Anbu member who was watching the Hokage and Kazukage's location. Sasuke stepped next to Naruto and watched the match below, mumbling, "Whatever, dead. Last." He snorted briefly before saying, "She got caught by his shadow." "Indeed," said his blonde teammate, "but it looks like it's not over yet." The two members of Team 7 watched as Shikamaru abruptly let go of Sakura and gave the pinkhead a perplexed expression as he stared at him. Sakura was very pleased with herself. The cage main's trick involved pressing your own chakra against the chakra of your opponent. The Nara is in charge because the Nara is the source of the technique. However, Sakura knew that since chakra was being used, there was something that could be done. She asked Naruto, of all people, for assistance, which was strange. And he had an extremely astute answer. She had the capacity to quickly and fully seal her own chakra. It's a worthless ability that makes you entirely exposed, so you should never use it in combat. However, it works flawlessly against the cage main, which requires chakra to function. Sakura can, of course, call all of her chakras back since she sealed them into a storage scroll. When Shikamaru's shadow is about to capture her during a battle, she would swiftly seal her chakra inside the scroll. The only issue was that, because Shikamaru's cage main was touching the scroll through Sakura's body, he had total control over it. Sakura was still able to move, if much more slowly, even in the absence of chakra. Shikamaru murmured idly, "You're seriously doing the one thing a shinobi should never do." As Shikamaru started to approach Sakura, Team 10 exclaimed, "I figured you were smarter than this." After all, the young Nara hardly ever ran. Sakura staggered back, a little taken aback. "You obviously don't know what to do beyond this." Sakura retorted, "Shay," as she moved her hand to her kunai, only to see Shikamaru's shadow move to the location of her landing. She closed her chakra quickly, only to see two kunai moving swiftly toward her. She ducked, only to see that Shikamaru had moved to the front and was clutching another kunai over her head. The young genius began, "There is nothing you can do in this situation. My cage main is all around you. The moment you move against me is the moment you'll have to use chakra to stand a chance. The moment you use chakra is the moment you get caught by my shadow." Sakura conceded, realizing the truth in those remarks. Naruto looked warily at the next bottle's winner. Though he didn't know much about the bug user, he now understood that he was a dangerous man. Because Yamanaka Ino used poisons in her flower techniques, something Shino had never even heard of, she had a distinct advantage over his bugs. Still, Shino held his ground for a very long time, finally employing one of his bug's most intriguing abilities. The capacity to change quickly. Because Shino's bugs had all evolved, the poison that Ino had used eventually proved to be ineffective. This was only possible because Shino was too skilled for Ino to handle as a shinobi. While his bugs were analyzing the poison Ino was using, he was stronger and faster, able to dodge anything thrown at him. Furthermore, Ino wasn't so foolish as to attempt to use the Shintention in a fight like this, which would unavoidably end in Shino's advantage. As he stepped onto the balcony, Naruto gave the Aburame a nod and said, "Good battle, Shino." With his bugs having sapped all of Ino's chakra, Shino had won. Between inevitable coughs, Gecko asked, "Will the next participants please step down?" Dosu's icy voice, though quiet, rang out to everyone in the room, "I forfeit." Naruto exchanged a sharp look with the sound nin, but he was still unsure of what the injured ninja would be doing. The opponent, Sabaku no Tamari, gave the sound shinobi a perplexed look, failing to recall that his forfeiting was a planned move. He let out a slightly frustrated sigh and braced himself for the next game. He cast a bored glance in Sasuke's direction and smiled. "Let's get this over with, Sasuke." HN. A moment later, Hayate Gecko was standing between the two, poised to declare the start of the match, as they both looked at each other. "Well, start the match." After being rejected from moving on to the next round, Haruno Sakura watched her two teammates engage in a standoff, tightly gripping the railing. "I hope this fight won't change anything, Sasuke-kun, Naruto." The teacher of Team 10, Sarutobi Asuma, said, standing behind Nara Shikamaru and a recovering Yamanaka Ino. "I'm curious about this fight." Team 10's lone survivor, Akamichi Choji, was sitting in the audience because he was no longer competing. Shikamaru surprised both Ino and Asuma by saying, "Me too." Shikamaru was never even remotely curious about anything, as far as they knew. All that Ino did was snort. "It's obvious Sasuke-kun is going to kick the dead last's ass." "Maybe," shrugged Shikamaru. "But something feels off," the dark-haired genin mused to herself. Gazing down at the battlefield, Tamari thought, "Uzumaki Naruto. Hopefully, everything will work out fine." The third Hokage, with his ever-present pipe in his hand, looked down on the two fighters. This might be a very interesting match, Cage, Dono. The head of Sand Village gave the elderly fire leader a quick glance, then returned his focus to the impending battle. The young Cage folded his arms and said, "Yes, I agree. He is the last of the Uchiha clan, is he not?" Uchiha Sasuke, and his rival, Uzumaki Naruto, Orochimaru, disguised, gave the blonde a menacing glare. The snake shinobi would never forget how the blonde had obstructed his path in the forest of death. That Jinchuriki will get what he deserves. Well, Sasuke. Naruto began, grinning and assuming a ready-to-go stance. How about we start this thing off? Hey, are you sure you want to get started right away? After all, the match will end as soon as I start moving, the Uchiha mocked. The brief period of time you can stand in front of me during this fight is your moment of fame. Shaking his head, the Kyuubi vessel said, "Bring it, Sasuke." "That's..." Gekko Hayate exclaimed as Sasuke charged towards the blonde with incredible speed. However, Naruto was keeping up with ease, dodging both of the roundhouse kicks and dodging under the elbow aimed at his nose. He then did a backflip from his seated position and attempted to kick Sasuke, but the Avenger slapped the attacking foot away and leapt back. Sasuke had already completed his hand seals when Naruto stood up, letting out, "Kaden, Housenka no Jutsu." Naruto smiled and easily sidestepped Sasuke's attack, going straight for the Uchiha. What? Sasuke could not parry the blow Naruto delivered to his head, which sent him flying to the left by a few feet. The dark-haired boy clenched his fists, and he can keep up with my speed. Since when is the Dobi so fast? And gave Naruto a hard look. Why didn't my Housenka hurt him? He walked through it like it was nothing. Sasuke closed his eyes and said, "Naruto, I'm not holding back anymore. It's time to end this." With a head nod, the blonde said, "As you wish, Sasuke." Upon activating his Sharingan, Sasuke saw roughly 20 of Naruto's Fuin Bunshin strewn all around him. These clones of his can't attack me, they can only watch. What's their purpose? Sasuke thought to himself. As Sasuke began to perform a few hand seals, Naruto narrowed his eyes and saw lightning-colored chakra surrounding Sasuke's right hand. Without missing a beat, Naruto smiled and poured the chakra into one of the Fuin seals on his shinobi outfit, the one that serves as a functional seal for Kenpo, Rengokan, Kyurei no Jutsu. Sasuke ignored the chakra surrounding Naruto and sprinted forward even faster than before, pausing only to slam the Chidori in Naruto's stomach when the latter did not move. Kakashi, up in the stands, was clearly disappointed that Sasuke would use the assassination technique against Naruto. "We're going to have a talk after this, Sasuke," he said, his eyes widening. "Sasuke. The Chidori is not meant for comrades." With Sasuke's fist in his stomach, Naruto laughed, "Whoa, you punch like a girl." Another blow to the head satisfied Sasuke's look of shock, and as the Uchiha hit the ground, Naruto swiftly grabbed one of Sasuke's legs and launched him into the air, hand-sealing right away. Fujin no Mei. When multiple wind sickles struck Sasuke's flailing body in midair, the crowd flinched until Sasuke's body transformed into a tiny piece of wood. "Kawarimi," muttered Naruto in a composed tone. "Wow, Sasuke is really good." How did you stop the Chidori?" yelled Sasuke, who had suddenly materialized several meters in front of Naruto. "You still have questions about that, I see." Naruto smiled and raised a hand, saying, "It's a secret. The best kept secret is the one you never reveal." Sasuke clenched his teeth and bowed slightly, saying, "I'll be taking you down now, dead last." "Oh, I was about to lose it all now." Naruto's eyes became very hard as he said, "Let's see if you can use that Kawarimi trick again." Sasuke was startled because, well, those words came from behind him. He could not have escaped the blow to his neck. Now that he was in midair once more, Naruto was on his tail, carrying on with his attack with a knee to Sasuke's side. With all his might, Sasuke managed to regain control over his body and quickly finished a few hand seals, but Naruto had launched himself upwards and was now hovering above the approaching Sasuke, waiting to slam the Uchiha back to the ground. Sasuke was tumbling in the air and was powerless to stop him. "Gukaku no Jutsu. Kaden. Not bad, Sasuke," the blonde genin said as Sasuke landed in front of him. Naruto sighed and let himself drop to the ground, allowing Sasuke's fireball technique to soar above him, realizing there was not enough time to activate the Kyuka seal. A little bruised, Uchiha gave the utterly unharmed Naruto a fierce glare and said, "Damn this. How can he be this good all of a sudden?" "Well, let's try that again." Once more, Sasuke was unaware that Naruto was behind him. This time, Sasuke's legs were swept out from under him, leaving him helpless as Naruto struck Sasuke's stomach with his fist, sending the Uchiha flying into the ground. A tiny crater was the end result. In order to give his opponent some space, Naruto leapt backward. How strange. The Kazekage had spoken up out of the blue, and the Sandaime Hokage looked up from his observation. The Kazekage put his hand to his chin and said, "I expected more of Uchiha Sasuke, but his opponent is clearly far above Genin level. Don't you find it strange, Hokage? Dono?" Sarutobi thought that was a good explanation, but it only made the Suna leader frown. His opponent is Uzumaki Naruto, Konoha's most unpredictable shinobi. Sasuke, Kun, Sakura, Ino, Shikamaru, Shino, Asuma, Dosu, Gaara, Tamari, and Rock Lee were on the waiting balcony. Lee abruptly yelled, "Naruto.kun," to no one in particular as he approached the startled Sakura. "Your teammates are very talented, Sakura.san." Sakura stammered once more, only managing to say, Sasuke.kun. Thus far in the match, Naruto was in total control of it. Sasuke was swift and employed strong techniques, but they accomplished absolutely nothing to harm Naruto. Nothing at all. One of the Naras suddenly stood to Sakura's other side and exclaimed, "What the hell happened to Naruto, Sakura?" Ino nearly broke her neck when she threw her head at Shikamaru. When did Shikamaru start caring and cursing? However, she was also curious about the response to that query. Moving like a very, very talented shinobi, Naruto was. His Shunshin is insane. Even if he has that Sharingan eye, he still can't keep up with Naruto. Shikamaru went on. "And I'm not really sure if you're seeing this, since you're biased because your precious Sasuke's fighting, but that Naruto, he's not really trying." Indeed, Ino came to realize. Naruto was allowing Sasuke to climb out of the crater he had been slammed into, while Sasuke struggled to do so below. At that very moment, he could very well keep going after the struggling Uchiha. However, he was merely waiting. Shino had chosen to enter the discussion after Ino, Lee, Sakura, and Shikamaru. A very accurate observation. Nara Shikamaru. Shino approached the railing beside Lee and said, "A shinobi should exploit any weaknesses at any time. My opinion is one of fact. Naruto is acting like he is of higher rank. A superior shinobi, if you will." "Sakura?" Ino inquired of the girl with pink hair. "How can Sasuke.kun, the strongest genin here, be losing against the dead, last like that?" As if in a panic, Sakura exclaimed, I don't know." However, she sensed, somehow, that Naruto had come a long way in the past few weeks. She could never have predicted that he would surpass Sasuke. And by this amount. Anyway, Shikamaru cut him off. "I'm kinda glad. Naruto deserves to win more than Sasuke does, anyway." He just frowned, not recoiling from the incredulous looks he was getting from Sakura and Ino. Lee nodded and said, "Naruto.kun and Sasuke.kun. They're powerful rivals." Eventually, Sasuke had managed to get back up on his feet in the fighting area. Sasuke gave Naruto a fierce glare and said, "My Chidori doesn't work. The same with my Kaden Jutsu. And he's faster than I am. How is this possible? In what way is he faster?" Keeping that in mind, Sasuke charged forward, determined to use his superior taijutsu to attack Naruto. However, every punch, kick, and throw attempt was easily parried, sidestepped, and blocked, and the blonde would simply get up and vanish whenever he would eventually find a gap in Naruto's stance. How? Sasuke's entire body was trembling with rage as he clenched his fists and gritted his teeth. "What the hell, Naruto?" Sasuke was behind the blonde when she appeared. He said coolly, "What the hell what, Sasuke?" As it happened, he was glaring back. "How did you improve this much? You're the dead last. How the hell can you keep up with me, one of the elite Uchiha?" Sasuke barked. Naruto shrugged angrily. This time, it was Naruto who clenched his fists, saying, "I trained as hard as I could, every second of every minute of every hour. Yes, I am the dead last, and you're top of the class. But this fight will prove that such titles don't mean a fucking thing." Naruto struck Sasuke hard in the face, causing his eyes to widen. A tenth of a second later, he struck him in the gut, and then again a tenth of a second later, in the head. And with that, Sasuke experienced the sensation of being struck by 10 blows in a single moment. With a final kick to Sasuke's torso and a few hand seals, Naruto let out Fuuden, Reppuken, while extending his right fist in the direction of Sasuke's body. Sasuke used a powerful wind attack to propel himself into the wall. Naruto began another round of hand seals with, "Here's the dead. Last, top rookie, Fuuden." He was interrupted when Naruto was approached by Hayate Gecko. "Uzumaki Naruto, you are the winner. Uchiha Sasuke is unconscious." Suddenly, a wave of victory over Uchiha Sasuke swept through him. Against the Uchiha Sasuke, he had prevailed. The person who was loved and respected by everyone. The one that was adored by all. He ventured to glance up at the balcony, where his peers were waiting, to see the shocked expressions on their faces. Then, he gave a long, loud roar and raised his right fist in the air before yelling, "I am Uzumaki Naruto, your future Hokage." Believe it, everyone in the crowd was silent. Everyone in the stadium seemed too terrified to speak a single word, and the silence seemed to resound throughout the whole space. There were plenty of frowns on people's faces, very few smiles, and even fewer proud smiles. What followed were whispers that were anything but complimentary. That demon brat. Of course he won, he's the Kyuubi, after all. Uchiha Sasuke. Sama, I can't believe he lost. In the area where the remaining competitors were waiting, the boy was hesitant to say, but he was determined to do it. Overkill. He was expecting the two girls in the waiting arena to respond viciously, but they did not move. After saying that, Shoji carried on munching on his chips. The eyes of Nara Shikamaru narrowed. This doesn't make any sense. I like it, but it doesn't make any sense. Sarutobi Asuma, his instructor, grinned at his pupil. Well, his sensei did mention to me that he was the most surprising kid he's ever met. To think that Uchiha Sasuke was beaten that easily. Shikamaru speculated, but he's strong, that's Sasuke. And Naruto is that much stronger. Asuma laughed a little to see Shikamaru act so disbelieving. He's changed so much. He was that prankster who always goofed off. It doesn't make any sense. Yes, Uzumaki Naruto has undergone a significant transformation, Aburame Shino added to the discussion. His eyes were as narrowed behind his glasses as Shikamaru's. My buds tell me he's perfectly organized. And when my buds speak of organized, they speak of chakra. He has become an opponent my buds want to face and don't want to face. Sakura and Ino, a little closer to the railing, were in shock, and Lee was yelling and jumping about extreme displays of youth. Forehead. Sasuke.kun. He was defeated. Sakura was simply staring between Sasuke's completely battered body and Naruto's brand new, unharmed body. Naruto has grown incredibly strong. Sanagakure's genin puppeteer spoke slowly. Yeah. I thought he was strong. This confirms it. Man, I couldn't even follow that Uchiha brat's movements and Naruto was moving even faster. It was evident that he was anxious. But it was unclear for what purpose. When the young Sabaku looked at his siblings, he saw that none of them were any different, not even Gaara. Gaara let out a sigh and headed for the stairs that led to the battle zone. It's my turn now. I hope you succeed, Ni-san, Tamari blurted. Indeed, Konkaru replied. Try to go easy on the guy. Gaara glared in his direction. No, I won't. As he watched the unconscious Sasuke being carried away on a stretcher by two medic.nin, Naruto felt pretty good about himself. He moved away from them, in the direction of the stairs. Wow. He noticed that the majority of the audience was staring at him. The pressure of all those stares fell strangely on him. He made the decision to simply look at the ground, keeping a smile on his face the entire time. Good match, Uzumaki Naruto. Glancing up, he saw Gaara coming down the steps. That's right, he and Rock Lee faced off in the next match. Shortly after, Naruto laughed since the fuzzy eyebrows were probably already waiting on the battlegrounds. He was correct to look over his shoulder and see Lee staring at them. Naruto grinned and turned back to face Gaara. His hand went out. Thanks, good luck, Gaara. With hesitation, Gaara raised his own hand and gave Naruto a shake. He whispered as the red-haired Suna.nin passed by Naruto. Get ready. With a nod, Naruto resumed his ascent of the stairs. Sarutobi Hiruzen remarked, taking a drag on his smoke pipe, I'm sure you've been waiting for this match, Cage. Dono. After letting off some smoke, he said, Rock Lee is a very promising genin. The Sans leader uttered, I'm sure. Orochimaru was unhappy inside the disguise, saying, but I'd rather have him fight against that previous fighter. That last match was truly something. I had to retreat back into the forest of death because that kid is too strong. We must get rid of him. The third turned to face below, but then, he will have to, if he wins this round. But Rock Lee is not to be underestimated. Orochimaru followed the third's gaze, rolling his eyes. After glancing at each competitor, referee Hayate Gecko announced that the match had started. Without wasting any time, Rock Lee charged forward only to discover he was immobile. What? It appeared that Gaara was saying, I have no time. Lee noticed that sand was gradually moving from his feet up to his knees when he looked down. Sabaku Q. As the sand began to move more quickly and reached his chest, Lee's eyes grew wide, only to entirely abandon him. Huge waves of sand roared loudly and whipped towards the small balcony where the Hokage and Cage were sitting. Rock Lee watched in horror as the attackers attacked the entire balcony. What are you doing? Without looking at the spandex clad genin, he said, I am attacking the Cage, my father. Our match is over, Rock Lee. Everyone could see how Anbu was defending the third and how the Cage was shielded by his own guards as the sand moved off the balcony. What is the meaning of this, Gaara? The stadium echoed with the thunderous voice of the Cage. Gaara grinned and held his ground. He spoke up enough for his father to hear him say, I'm stopping your plans to attack Konoha. Sensing that Baki had materialized behind him, his blade of wind poised to sever Gaara in two. His eyes grew wide. Oh shish. My shield isn't he anymore. Baki's arm was brutally severed, and it made a squishy sound as it hit the ground. Turning, Gaara saw Baki glare at him. However, he noticed Naruto lurking behind Baki. Subsequently, the fair-haired man struck Baki's visage with his fist, causing the senior Junin to collide with a wall and lose consciousness. I got your back, Gaara. Tamari and Kankuro landed in front of Gaara, and his eyes widened even more. In a whisper, they said, as do we. Lee asked, totally taken aback by what had just transpired and wondering, what's going on? Naruto.kun. Naruto was unaware of the true strength of the spandex clad genin until he met Lee. I think it's best you head for your teacher for orders. Cause everything's just gone to hell. The Sandaime Hokage saw that Gaara had not thrown sand in his direction previously. He guessed he was only attacking you, Cage, Dono. All of a sudden, the stadium's roof and the whole balcony were encircled by a purple barrier. The Cage turned to the third inside. Although I didn't want it to go this way, I guess I'll have to make do. In the corners of the purple cube were 4 sound shinobi, and Hiruzen didn't like this, Shishi engine. The Cage laughed as explosions erupted all around Konoha, outside the barrier. Yes, quite the fortunate technique. Only you and your 2 Anbu versus me and my 2 guards. Konoha will be crushed, Sarutobi. Sensei. After glancing at the purple barrier, Hayate Gecko returned his attention to the scene in front of him. He looked from the Baki's motionless body to Naruto, who appeared to be speaking to Gaara and his 2 siblings, and said, that Junin from the sand is completely knocked out. That Naruto child isn't your typical genin, he exclaimed as he witnessed millions of white feathers falling all over the stadium. Genjutsu, huh? He gestured to dispel, and the 4 genin in front of him followed suit. Without letting up a cough, Gecko said, you 4. You seem to know more about this situation than I do, and he walked over to Naruto and the others. Explain. Gaara said, a little icily, the sand and sound have teamed up. Their goal is to destroy Konoha completely. I have chosen to resign as a Suna.nin and have allied myself with Uzumaki Naruto. Tamari and Kankuro nodded while concentrating on Hayate, saying, as have we. The referee observed how sand and sound were battling leaf shinobi from above. He turned to face Naruto and said, I can't trust you so easily, in this situation. He was about to say, your orders are to stay with these 3. UWI. When a wave of sand suddenly rushed towards him from Gaara, who had chosen to point his hands at Gecko. What are you? Gecko watched as the sand shot past him, to the left and right, to deflect a sound shinobi attack. From behind Gecko, a humorous voice said, interesting. You've stopped my attack. I hadn't expected such a feat from a mere genin. After making some distance and jumping, Gecko turned and stood in front of Naruto and the others. And you are? The young man with white hair just grinned. With a haughty whisper, I'll let you guess my clan name, as bones shot out of his elbows. Hayate got her sword ready. He gave the genin behind him an order, saying, I'm assuming he's got a Kekai Genkai. You keep your distance, he's no ordinary opponent. Then, with incredible speed, the white-haired sound shinobi charged forward. But Hayate was aware of his movements and prepared for him. However, Kimimaro stumbled and collapsed onto one knee. He became lightheaded without warning. He held one hand to his head and muttered, "What? You let your guard down, Kagaya Kimimaro." With a glare over his shoulder that promised excruciating pain, Kimimaro shot him a mean look. There, he saw a single, bandaged sound genin. The previous genin suddenly materialized in front of his new opponent, causing the Kagaya to blink and ask, "One of those cockroaches that entered this exam for Orochimaru. Sama? You betray us and side with Konoha?" Dosu replied, "Obviously. There's no way we can beat Konoha, there never was." The user of bones growled. He overcame Dosu's motion sickness by elevating his body to Curse Seal level 1 for a brief period of time. Your penalty will be evisceration for having no faith in Orochimaru. Sama, get ready. However, Kimimaro was unprepared for the blow to his head that came from the right just a moment later. The blow was powerful enough to send him into one of the 4 walls surrounding the combat zone. Actually, Baki was sent in the same wall. Naruto had gotten behind Kimimaro and struck him in the face using his shunshin. Unknowingly holding his breath, Gekko released it. There was no putting away this Kagaya Kimimaro. However, witnessing a genin knock him through a wall made him feel a little better. The blonde asked, "Uzumaki Naruto, right?" And Gekko retreated a step. He said, "His eyes are red." The blonde said, "Yeah, you want me to handle this guy, right? I want you to explain how 1 sound and 3 sand genin are working with you." "Oh." The blonde gave a single nod, observing Kimimaro's self. "Picking up motion. That's easy. They're my comrades. You can totally trust them," Gekko exclaimed, letting his guard down because he sensed the blonde's comments were accurate, not at all incorrect. Reactions from Dosu, Gaara, Kankuro, and Temari were comparable. They were somehow persuaded by Naruto's statements. Hayate began, "All right, new orders." The special Junin looked up to see the numerous fights strewn all around and said, "I can't stay here and focus on this one guy." The last part he said to the non-Konoha genin was, "You 5 deal with him. After that, help everyone you can. Deal with your enemies without hesitation." The Junin then left the genin to fend for themselves. Naruto said, "Hey guys. I can handle this one by myself. But we've got another visitor on the battlefield." He threw a kunai over his shoulder and observed Yakushi Kabuto easily sidestep it. "Quite the senses you have there, Naruto-kun." Naruto asked Kabuto, "Why hide your presence from us if you're from the Leaf?" As Kimimaro stood up once more and gave him a menacing look, he gave the glasses. Wearing Shinobi a quick glance, and when he saw that terrible smirk, Naruto knew there would be no reply. "He's an enemy. You 4 deal with him. I have the feeling he's stronger than he looks." Kankuro had called forth 2 puppets in front of him with a puff and some smoke. Temari had prepared her wind fan. Gaara still had his arms folded, and Dosu had his metallic arm ready to go with one narrowed eye. With a smile, Naruto bent until his knees touched the floor. "Right, let's get wild." Fighting alongside each other, Asuma, Kakashi, and Kurenai defeated Sand and Sound Shinobi. The chain smoker said, "What's going on, Kakashi? Why is the Hokage trapped in that purple barrier? Are the Sound and Sand trying to overtake us?" A fresh voice exclaimed, "Look closely," as Guy sighed, swiped 4 feeble auto.nin and landed in front of the 3. "Up there. It's not the cage. It's Orochimaru," Kakashi thought, feeling uneasy. He observed one of his students working with 3 Suna.nin and 1 Auto.nin while he was looking down. And what exactly is happening down there? He'd noticed that Gekko had departed to battle a Leaf and a Sound Ninja. As he easily avoided 7 shuriken and threw one back, taking his attacker by the neck, he exclaimed, "You guys should try to break through that barrier. These ninja here are small fry." Kurenai inquired, "What about you, Kakashi?" as she was taking it easy after trapping roughly 11 Sand Shinobi in an illusion. Kakashi then saw how Naruto was fending off the Sound.nin and the 3 Sand.nin, along with another Sound.nin, were fending off the Leaf.nin. "My student. I need to know what's going on. That is confusing." The instructor of Team 10 lit up a cigarette and simultaneously kicked 2 Auto-Chunin away from him, saying, "Your student can take care of himself, Kakashi." In case you hadn't noticed, he knocked out a Suna-Junin, a Junin, with 2 blows. "I suppose. Yosha!" exclaimed Guy as Lee unexpectedly touched down next to him. "Lee, let's show them all who's Basu." Lee gave one, "Asu." bow before defending himself against multiple sound Chunin. With his weights off, Lee was moving faster than ever, so Guy wasn't concerned. Shino and Shikamaru had vanished from the little balcony they were on, and Sakura and Ino were concealed behind some Konoha Anbu. The moment that weird genjutsu entered the stadium, everything fell apart. All of the people in the crowd, with the exception of the shinobi, were still asleep. Just seconds later, Dosu, the only genin remaining from sound in the Chunin exams, had leapt down. Before using the genjutsu, Shino had spoken to Shikamaru, and the two had simply leapt from the balcony. Before all of that, Naruto had leapt off the balcony to help Gaara, as she was about to be attacked from behind by that Sanjunin. Kankuro and Tamari had done the same. And now they were just sitting there while every assailant was dealt with by the Anbu in front of them. Shouldn't we do something, Ino? What can we do? Ino asked, feeling utterly powerless. There was an explosion from down the fighting area, followed by the cry, "This is serious. Konoha is being attacked by two countries, What was that?" Sakura had been observing her teammate Naruto ever since the blonde had dove to assist Gaara, saying, "I saw it." Naruto hit one of those sound ninja. Ino was at a loss for words in response. Then it occurred to her to think. Hey, why is Naruto helping that Gaara guy anyway? Gaara's from the sand, right? Sand is attacking us? Sakura, looking a little irritated, said, if you had paid attention, Gaara attacked his own cage just before that weird genjutsu. And as you can see, those five down there are helping each other. The better question, my question, is, what's that sound guy doing helping Naruto down there? Yeah, right, Ino replied. That is a better question. After getting dressed, Kimimaro turned to face the fair-haired Konoha Genin. Genin, what's your name? Yours is a power I hadn't expected. I'll be returning that one tenfold. Kimimaro felt the chakra surrounding her get stronger. Naruto smiled. Hey, you can sure as hell try, boner. The name's Uzumaki Naruto. Then, Uzumaki Naruto, get ready. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki merely gave a headshake. You guys are late. Kimimaro looked to the right and noticed two additional Konoha Genin standing there. One man was crouching with his hands in his pockets, while the other had an active seal pointed at him. Is he employing a jutsu? As he looked closer, he noticed that the person who was crouching had a large shadow that extended from his legs to his own legs. What is this? He exclaimed, getting angry when he realized he was immobile. Cage main no jutsu, what a success, snorted Shikamaru. You're talented in landing into sticky situations, Naruto. Perhaps you should try to stay in bed next time. The bug users of the air of Konoha began speaking, and Naruto was unable to reply. Shino walked past Shikamaru and gave Kimimaro a cool look, asking, already you can feel it, am I wrong? But because of his glasses, nobody could see it. My bugs are draining you of that volatile chakra. The youthful Kagaya was becoming enraged. Volatile chakra. I'll show you. Volatile chakra. Kimimaro exclaimed as he leapt to curse seal level 2, breaking free of the cage main right away. Shikamaru exclaimed, that's impossible. With wide eyes filled with shock and terror. We can't handle this guy. Shino had also retreated a little bit. My bugs are afraid to approach that deadly chakra. However, it appears to be even more deadly for the user. Kimimaro lunged forward, clutching two seemingly jagged bones. He moved at an unbelievable speed, but when a single sword stopped both of his swords, he was totally caught off guard. After noticing Kimimaro's face, Naruto explains, Kenpo. Kachiyose. Ego Kaiki. Not wishing to undervalue his opponent any longer, Kimimaro leapt back and asked, How? How can you keep up with my speed? And my power? And how come your sword can withstand my bones? My bones can slice through any kind of metal. Naruto smiled. This sword is special. It automatically copies the skill of the sword hitting it. In other words, it becomes its equal. As such, my task is to be a better swordsman than my opponent. Kimimaro grinned smugly and said, I see, but when it comes to the Kagaya, there is no better swordsman. And where you have one sword, I have many. Naruto gave Shino and Shikamaru the order, you guys stay back. This guy's too strong, go help Gaara. Even the smallest sand grains from Gaara weren't able to harm Kabuto, who was deftly dodging every attack that was directed at him. He appeared to be able to see and feel everything around him. Kankuro came to the conclusion, this guy's not normal. Dosu stood up next to Kankuro and said, he is Yakushi Kabuto, Orochimaru's right-hand man. He's dangerous. I don't know if we can defeat him and he knows all my tricks. Do you know his? Turning around, Gaara, Kankuru, Tamari, and Dosu saw Shino and Shikamaru joining the fighting group. It was Shikamaru who posed the query. The bandaged Dosu replied, "Unfortunately, no, we'd best move with caution." The slippery voice of Kabuto, grinning at all the genin in front of him, said, "You kids can run along, actually. My target is behind you. You're free to flee from the scene. It shouldn't be too difficult for 6 genin, but one of them is a Jinchuriki. The others are unimportant." Abruptly, he released some chakra around himself in self-defense. "Aburame, your bugs won't be able to get near my chakra, they'll be sliced. And you won't be able to catch me off guard, shadow user," he said to Shikamaru. Konoha genin both narrowed their eyes, annoyed at having just jumped in. He was too familiar with their capabilities. Soon as Jinchuriki raised his voice, "Your target is Uzumaki Naruto?" His fists clenched as he asked, "And you are Orochimaru's right-hand man?" "That man up there is not my father," Gaara said, and Kabuto could tell she was angry. "Tell me, what happened to my father? Should I aggravate him more?" Kabuto adjusted his glasses. "My intel says he will lose control and attack friend and foe alike." "Ah, yes, your father, he was pretty weak for a cage. Orochimaru easily killed him. He took a few of his shinobi with him, but they proved to be unnecessary." Gaara did become furious, but he maintained composure. "Despite my hate for my father, you and Orochimaru, and your entire country are going to pay for all of this." Kabuto merely gestured for them to approach while shaking his head. "From now on, I'll be aiming to kill, not to hurt." He was taught to kill and to overcome. Once he began fighting, no one dared to get in his way. He was the leader of the 4 strong nin, the Sound 4. Nobody had surpassed him save Orochimaru himself. Although Kabuto had never before exchanged blows with Kabuto Sensei, it's possible that he was stronger as well. However, this child was totally controlling him. His opponent was dead serious. "I have no time to waste, Bone User. The Hokage is in danger, and as one of his shinobi, I need to help him." Kimimaro smiled. "The Hokage? Orochimaru. Sama is probably already putting his head in a paper bag as we speak." A step back was taken by the Kekai Genkai user as Naruto's eyes changed color. Was it orange or red? That was unquestionably the incorrect thing to say. "That's not good. I'm already using my level 2 curse seal, and he was pushing me back. He appears to be even stronger now." "Your name is Kimimaro, correct?" Naruto asked, balling his fists. Sage Chakra and Kyuubi Chakra were wreaking havoc on his body, declaring, "You are an enemy that needs to be disposed of." The rising killer intent from Naruto intimidated Orochimaru, but his star pupil glared at the blonde. He started, "Insolent little fool. You have no," but was stopped by a powerful blow. "Fuuten. Genkosaku." Kimimaro slammed into the earth with all of his body weight. He was almost at the point of screaming now, but he was too proud to do so due to pain. There was nothing left on his left side of his body. Naruto had wind chakra encircling his right fist when he struck Kimimaro moments earlier, using it to power his blows. UCK. Naruto performed seals and fixed his hard gaze on Kimimaro's anguish. "Fuuten. Ryukan Furierosu. I'll destroy everything that threatens me and my friends," the blonde exclaimed as he swung both of his arms in Kimimaro's direction. And when wind chakra struck Kimimaro's body, killing the bone user, a huge crater was formed. Glancing back, he noticed Kabuto staring at him with a shocked expression. Naruto noticed that Shino and Shikamaru were both panting and that their chakras were depleting. Without success, Gaara continued to attempt strikes on the man donning glasses. Tamari, like Shino and Shikamaru, was dozing off on the ground. Dosu lay unconscious but still alive on the ground. Standing behind them all, doing very little except warning his younger brother to keep an eye out for any attacks from Kabuto, was Kankuru. The puppeteer's broken puppets were lying next to him. Gaara noticed that his opponent was staring at Naruto from behind him and gave up trying to hit him. Gaara glanced over his shoulder, watching Naruto out of the corner of his eye, just to make sure Kabuto wouldn't try anything nefarious. He has already vanquished his adversary. The confidence had left his voice as he said, "Impressive, Naruto-kun. As it is, I think it's best for me to take my leave. As it is, I never thought anyone could deal with Kimimaro like that." Kabuto quickly bowed once and lowered himself into the ground. Gaara asked, "Should we go after him?" The blonde growled and fixed his gaze on the Shishi engine in the distance, saying, "No, we have bigger problems." After shaking his head, he gave one nod. "I suppose there's no other option." Performing numerous hand seals, He extended both arms in front of his mouth and took a deep breath. Like Sasuke did when he released the Gukakyu no Jutsu, Naruto did the same with Fuden. Gufu Suihedo. He lost his sage state as a result of throwing so much chakra into the attack. However, the result was astounding. Packed with wind chakra, a vertical tornado tore through the area, directly towards the purple barrier. Right toward the structure where the purple barrier was located. The ground was trembling as Shikamaru questioned warily, "Naruto, what are you thinking?" He stepped gingerly up to the gasping blonde. Gazing at the several craters Naruto had made in the ground during the battle, the Nara thought, he defeated his opponent as if it was nothing. As the tornado slammed into the building, shattering the Sound 4 and every other Shishi engine member, Shino, Tamari, Gaara, Kankuru, and Dosu were all staring at it. The Sound 4 eventually lost focus as a result of this, cancelling out the Shishi engine. "I'm out of chakra, Shikamaru," the blonde exhaled sharply before collapsing to one knee. He looked at Dosu, Gaara, and the redhead's siblings and said, "But that should do the trick. Please, help Hokage, Sama." Shikamaru turned away from Naruto and said, "Don't worry, despite the troublesome effort, we can't let you do all the work, unfortunately." Shino threw a pill to Naruto, who had fallen on his back, saying, "Here." The soldier pill fell to his chest with the words, "It will replenish your chakra presence." Gaara gave the recovering Jinchuriki a small smile and said, "You can count on us, Uzumaki Naruto." Dosu bowed once and said, "Yes, you have my word as well." Kabuto was forced to retreat and Kimimaro was defeated. I knew he was strong, but I never expected to this extent. With a deft landing, Orochimaru observed his rival, the third Hokage, do the same. Enma, the large ape, his dependable summon, stood next to him. However, he also had the first and second Hokage nearby, summoning powerful undead. It wouldn't do, though. The rest of Konoha was being kept out of the battle by the Shishi engine, and right now. They were now surrounded by Hitaki Kakashi, Maeda Gai, and a number of other Junin, including multiple Anbu squads. No, it was time to back down. However, how? All four of the Sound Shinobi were fighting lower ranked shinobi and losing. They were unquestionably hopeless. This plan had quickly gone south. As more and more soldiers arrived to support the Sandaime, Orochimaru came to the realization that he needed to take drastic measures to escape this place. An edict would. The Master of Snakes stopped thinking and growled. Kage Main no Jutsu. Akamichi Shuza, Yamanaka Inoichi, and Nara Shikaku had all entered the fight. Orochimaru observed how the shadow of Shikaku had ensnared both of the former Hokage. "You think you can capture 3 shinobi of this caliber with that shadow of yours?" Shikaku laughed. "Not shadow. Shadows." Then, to his surprise, he noticed that more and more Nara clan members were using the Kage Main on their forms. "You." Orochimaru. The third voiced an inquiry. "There seems to be no other way. Your summons will disappear when you die." The elderly man's voice carried a distinct note of melancholy. With all his might, Orochimaru attempted to break free, but to no avail. "Sarutobi, I won't go down so easily." It was difficult enough to get away from one Kage Main. Getting away from a dozen was just not possible. Enma's voice came next to the fire leader, saying, "It's been too long. It's time to correct your past mistakes, Sarutobi. Allow me to deal the killing blow." Sadly nodding his head, Hiruzen turned away. "I am sorry, Orochimaru." Everyone saw as Enma destroyed the snake Sennin by crashing into Orochimaru's form. Unfamiliar sealing his body ached all over and he became irritated at the fact that he couldn't move without experiencing pain. However, that was no longer a concern. He was obviously in a Konoha hospital bed. Konoha had thus escaped the invasion by Sound. He was curious as to what transpired. What became of Orochimaru and the old man? He was wondering if anyone had passed away. "I see you're awake." A voice I didn't recognize. He clenched his jaw as sharp pain shot through his neck. However, he desired to look around to see who else was in the room. He saw an Anbu uniform and long purple hair right away. He took a deep breath. This was a stunning, unidentified woman. What could he say? "You're suffering from chakra exhaustion. You won't be able to move for at least a day more, and that's with taking in consideration the Kyuubi's regenerative powers." She told it like it was. "Uzumaki Naruto, you've been a huge help during the attack," she said, squinting her brown eyes at him. "Thank you for getting rid of the Shishi engine. Although it sent you in a life-threatening situation. You releasing that jutsu seemed to have completely drained you from almost all of your chakra. A simple soldier pill wouldn't have sufficed. You've been unconscious for 2 days. Quite a lot for a Jinchuriki. Eh? He seemed to have completely lost his voice, but he pushed it through. Anything, for the Hokage. Excellent. She gave a nod. A few weeks ago, the Hokage came to me with a request. I refused it immediately, but now, I am taking the request into consideration. He growled. Who are you? She grinned. She seemed to be grinning cruelly, which astounded Naruto. Azuki Yugo. Anbu Captain. Azuki Yugo was one of the 2 women who could instruct him in genjutsu techniques. She turned and headed for the hospital room's exit, saying, as soon as you have recovered, I want you to see the Hokage's secretary. She will have a mission for you. Also, congratulations. Even though her back was to Naruto, she added, as if reading his confusion, congratulations on making Chunin. An embarrassing loss to the class clown. A loss at the hands of the last person standing. A loss at the hands of an underdog. A loss at the hands of a complete idiot. An upset caused by Uzumaki Naruto. Uchiha let out a sigh. He was aware of the Dobi's significant improvement in the previous few months. He ought to have done more practice for the Chunin exams battle. It was incorrect of him to undervalue his teammate. Not by this significant. When he'd let loose that last attack on him, the blonde's eyes had been filled with hate. Is Naruto truly enraged with him? Did he truly despise Naruto? He thought he ought to be angry with Naruto for beating him. But inexplicably, he didn't. Because of the one-sided nature of the fight, Sasuke was certain that Naruto had been holding back. The Uchiha had thrown in the towel. He swore, damn it. He remained in a bed in the hospital. For the whole of the sound attack, he was unconscious. However, he now had a rival, someone with whom to practice, and someone with whom to battle. An adversary. To become stronger meant to surpass Naruto. Gaining strength would bring him one step closer to beating his brother. Yes, in order to get stronger, he would be training against Naruto. Yo. Sasuke glanced up at his Junin instructor from beneath his sheets. Kakashi. How you holding up, Sasuke? The young Avenger grimaced and said, I'm fine. Stop asking me that question already. The sluggish Junin shrugged and said, well, you're still in a hospital bed. You realize I have a few broken bones, right? So you're not okay? Attempted the copycat. Sasuke disregarded the query. Why are you here, Kakashi? Oh, right. He pulled something out of his pocket out of nowhere, and when Sasuke saw it was an Icha book, he became enraged. After a minute and a half, Sasuke said, well, there was only so much silence annoyance in him. He looked from his book to Sasuke and said, a medic.nin will be tending to your fractured bones today. You should be up and about in 2 days. We're going to be having more missions, higher ranked ones. Time for pleasantries is quite over, Sasuke. The Uchiha gave a confident smile. At last. Naruto will already be on a mission starting tomorrow, and that one may last a week or 2. So we'll be having a substitute for him. A boy named Sai. He reminds me of you. Kakashi went on. Sai is higher ranked than Genin, by the way. The reminds me of you part had made Sasuke scowl, but the higher ranked than Genin part had made him sit up straight. Someone else with whom to compare himself. What about the Dobi? Is this Sai a permanent substitute? No, Naruto will be back, of course. Unaware that Sasuke had spoken that aloud, Kakashi scowled in confusion. Good. I see Sasuke getting better, so, that loss was a good thing. I want you to come at me with everything you have. Following his visit to the Hokage's secretary, Naruto was instructed to report to Konoha's interrogation division. Though he knew the old man was preoccupied with numerous meetings, he still wanted to see him. He arrived at the interrogation department to find Hayate Gecko and Azuki Yugo waiting for him. Next, inside the interrogation building, the two took him to a training area. In response to the request, Naruto said, "You don't want that." After scowling at Azuki to observe her neutral demeanor as usual, Gecko turned back to Naruto. "I know you're good, but I'm a special Junin. You don't have to worry about hurting me." But Naruto's attention was fixed on the sword in Gecko's hands. "That a special sword, Hayate-san?" "Yes." "Why?" The fair-haired woman shrugged. "Abilities." "Multiplicity." Gecko smiled, observing the blonde's puzzled expression. Naruto scowled at the older man. "What do you mean? It can make copies of itself. That doesn't make sense." "No, it doesn't make copies of itself. It lets itself be copied, momentarily." "Okay. If I were to use Bunshin while I hold this sword, the sword in my clone's hands is just as strong as the original. but the Bunshin itself would still just be an illusion. That appears to be quite hazardous. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki speculated. That's actually pretty awesome. Hayate gave a head nod. Yes, it is. I can almost always hit my enemies. Naruto gave a few hand seals and smiled maniacally. Teach me Kenjutsu, please, Hayate-san. Kenpo. Kachiyose. Ego Kaiki. Even Izuki's expression changed from neutral to curious, and Hayate appeared intrigued. Naruto was holding a broadsword that was obviously meant for a man who was taller than him. Huge and broad, it seemed more appropriate for a boy like Naruto to use it as a shield rather than a sword. What's that sword, Naruto-kun? Hayate inquired, feeling a little giddy about engaging in a Kenjutsu duel once more. It's the Ego Kaiki, the sword of eternal recurrence. Izuki chimed in, isn't it a bit too heavy for you, Naruto? Hayate had to concur. No, it's weightless. Look at it. The moment he released the sword, it disappeared. Konoha's pariah seemed very proud of his sword as he described it to his fellow Konoha.nin. It responds only to my touch. When I release the sword, the summon ends. It can never be stolen from me, it can never be handled by someone else. The coughing Junin said, so, now you have to summon it again? Yes, but it's not a big deal. I can summon it with hand seals, but I can also do this. He said, pouring chakra into the palm of his right hand. This caused the Kachiyose Fuin seal in his palm to activate, and the Ego Kaiki to materialize out of nowhere. Hayate and Izuki were equally astounded. Fuinjutsu? So, what are its abilities? Gekko asked, his curiosity piqued. Naruto smiled, it copies anything it touches. What? Forever? No, not forever. As soon as my sword touches anything else, the skill it's copied of the former sword disappears. So, hit my sword, Hayate-san. With a shrug, Hayate said, alright. Now I have your ability, but since you're obviously skilled in Kenjutsu, you'd probably kick my ass. Usually when I use Kage Bunshin no Jutsu with the Ego Kaiki, the Ego Kaiki's ability only works with me, the original. Now, however. While Naruto created roughly 100 shadow clones, Gekko and Izuki observed. How about this? Bunshin no Jutsu. The two Junin gave a menacing smile as Naruto also produced regular clones, each possessing the Ego Kaiki power from Gekko's sword. Thus, all those swords that a few hundred Narutos were carrying were lethal. Izuki smiled and took hold of her own sword, saying, I don't think you can handle this by yourself, Hayate. I've been waiting for a good work. Out. Hayate laughed, hey. You just want to do some slicing, but by all means, let's do this. Meanwhile, the real Naruto was hiding and keeping a close eye on the two Junin. Can these two help me become stronger? And then, an army of shadow clones and sword wielding clones descended upon the two. Let's watch them get through this unscathed first. Hyuga Hiyashi was a hard charging man who did not like to be ignored. He said, Suna has no right for such demands. It's barely been a week and they already think we've forgotten about their foolish collaboration with Otto. They have nothing to offer in this situation. Utatane Kaharu, this Hokage's former teammate, expressed her thoughts, saying, we should not let our guards down, this could be a farce. These demands of wanting their prized genin back might be a way to make us believe those children are really considering becoming Konoha shinobi. I still think they are spies. Konoha will not make the same mistake by letting other foreign shinobi in. That Yakushi Kabuto was Orochimaru's right-hand man. Who knows who these children are? Let alone this Kinuta Dosu, who worked under Orochimaru. They have proven their loyalty, have they not? They fought alongside a Konoha genin, Uzumaki Naruto, and stopped one of the stronger shinobi under Orochimaru. They even made Orochimaru's strongest disciple retreat. Akamichi Shuza, Choji's dad, replied. Shimura Danzo, the leader of Anbu Root, said, you think those actions alone are enough to prove loyalty to Konoha? Perhaps you are more ignorant than I thought. The clan leaders and the Konoha council were seated at a table, and the harsh words cast a shadow over the conversation. The third said, Danzo. Before Shuza could answer, the elderly leader declared, now is not the time to bicker amongst ourselves. It is true they have fought for Konoha and it's true that it might not fully prove anything. But it is also true that they have all undergone several interrogations under both Morino Ibiki and Yamanaka Inoichi. The Sandame nodded to the current Inoichi. Your thoughts please, Yamanaka-san? Inoichi gave a nod in return and got up from his seat, glaring at everyone in the room. Shimura Danzo, Sarutobi Hiruzen, Hyuga Hiyashi, Nara Shikaku, Mitokado Homura, Aburame Shibi, Inazuka Sume, and Udatane Kaharu are among the people mentioned. I've entered all of their minds. They were not prepared at all for the powers of the Yamanaka clan, so I've come across the answers to many questions with ease. They all fought with the same thing in mind. Or rather, the same person. Uzumaki Naruto. The leader of the Yamanaka clan paused and cast a brief but profound glance at the third. One of them said that they would need to speak privately because he couldn't disclose something very important to the other in this room. They are loyal and loyal alone to Uzumaki Naruto. Not to Konoha, but to him. That much was proven to me. And I know that Uzumaki Naruto is loyal to Konoha. I believe that should answer any questions? Homura, the third's other former teammate, responded right away, saying, "Of course it doesn't. Why would they be loyal to Naruto? You've entered their minds, so you know more. A lot more." With an unsure smile, Inoichi said, "Perhaps I should. But that was enough for me to cut the link. The Yamanaka are mind dwellers, but we will never invade someone else's minds further once we already have the answers we are looking for." He returned his attention to the Hokage. They are loyal to Konoha. I think the demands from Suna for their return should not be answered in any way except refusal. Danzo chimed in again, saying, "Well, that goes without saying. Now, seeing that we've gained new, promising shinobi, perhaps we should focus on their roles in our village. They've proven to be quite reliable. They should be put to good use." Hiruzen scowled at his erstwhile ally, their genin, Danzo. They're getting used to Konoha's customs as we speak and are living under the same roof as Uzumaki Naruto. Danzo cast a neutral, almost bored, glance at the fire leader. "You suggest we wait, then? What about Uzumaki Naruto? He carries great potential, seeing how he completely humiliated Konoha's prodigy, Uchiha Sasuke. He has now been promoted to Chunin and thus, can be added to the ranks of Anbu." His eyes widened and hardened as he looked at the third. "It is also quite obvious that he's hiding something. And I'm not really sure you know the story behind his miraculous growth in strength. The boy strives to become the greatest Hokage, Danzo. He pushes himself beyond his limits, it's only natural he's grown so much." The elder, who was partially bandaged, shook his head at the third's reply. "Rubbish. No one can improve that much in such little time. Have you been watching him, Danzo?" A brief hush fell as Danzo gave the head of Konoha a scowl. "It is common knowledge, Sarutobi. Common knowledge that the Kyuubi Jinchuriki did not live up to his title of holding the greatest Biju in him. The Kyuubi's keeper would be a strong vessel. He was anything but, and all knew." Aburame Shibi said, almost in a whisper, "Then, I would assume this growth to be even more natural." However, still audible to everyone. "Someone with a Biju as immense as the nine-tailed demon fox. I would believe him to become a force not easily matched." If Danzo had been a lesser man, he would have growled at that. They all turned to face General Nara Shikaku of Konoha and said, "Enough, already." Shikaku said, "Those Suna and Ado kids, they can be trusted, if Inoichi says so." Inoichi nodded in agreement. This meeting was about them, not about Uzumaki Naruto. Why do meetings here always get dragged out to troublesome cases? This meeting's subject has already been dealt with. I want to go home. The third grinned to himself, knowing that Shikaku had seen the fleeting look that passed between him and Inoichi. "I agree." Meeting adjourned. Danzo, obviously unhappy, shuffled off. He never imagined that a rational person would tell him this. However, Yamanaka Inoichi took this very seriously. Before Hiruzen and Jiraiya could really discuss his most recent mental excursions, Hiruzen had called Jiraiya. Just to be safe, the Seal Master had set up a sound barrier around the Hokage's office. They were now having a brief meeting, the three of them. "He's a genius." Sarutobi, the old man, laughed. "Uzumaki Naruto is a genius." "Yes. I've watched through Kinuta Dosu's eyes and saw him gather information in a way Jiraiya would definitely be proud of. That kid found out about the sound invasion before all of us. Then I watched through Sabaku no Gaara's eyes and saw how he won the Suna Genin over. If it hadn't been for him, Konoha would have been dealt more damage to. He took Suna's trump card and made him one of Konoha's own. Hokage. Sama, Naruto's strong, but he's also smart. He's gained 4 allies during this Chunin exam, without too much trouble. If I were to suggest anything, I think he should be the leader of a team, consistent of just them." The admiration that Jiraiya's godson was getting had made him smile. Yes, that child had a lot of potential. A smile also appeared on Sarutobi's face as he studied the Yamanaka in front of him. An Anbu squad has already taken an interest in him. He's having a mission with an Anbu captain and another Anbu member and he's being judged on his actions. though he himself obviously doesn't know about it. Anbu. Huh? Jiraiya exclaimed upon whistling. Yamanaka Inoichi couldn't help but wonder, the kid's ready for it, but is Anbu really a place for him to be in? This Anbu squad might be good for him, it's Azuki Yugo's. That made Inoichi chuckle. I see, yes, that might even be better. Jiraiya's expression was intense. So, he's having a mission with Azuki Yugo. Now, where are they headed? Yes, that's correct. Now Sarutobi recalled. Anbu always used multiple routes to get from point A to point B. Azuki Yugo was one of Jiraiya's favorite Konoha women. Yes, they're having a mission. They're on their way to Kumo, using Route Yellow. There were different places to eat, sleep, and hunt along each route. Some were slower than others. Yellow, huh? Smiled Jiraiya. I'm on it, he exclaimed, disappearing along with the sound barrier. After shaking his head at his departure, Inoichi scowled at the third's amused expression. I probably should have told him Naruto's not having that mission until tomorrow. She was not familiar with Training Area 39, where Team 7 was supposed to report. It seems that they will have a new, temporary teammate starting today. Nothing was revealed, so Sakura guessed what he or she would be like. After his release, Sasuke had been out of the hospital for 2 days. Would he really be prepared to go on any kind of mission by now? You must be, Haruno Sakura. Sakura was clearly surprised to see someone else standing in the clearing they were supposed to report to, as she was usually the first one there. He was drawing on a scroll while seated on the ground and leaning against a tree. Yes. And you are? She thought he would get up and give her a hand, but all he did was turn back to his scroll and say, Sai. She scowled at the boy and nodded her head, saying, Sai. She said, nice to meet you, Sai. But got no reply. Just as she turned to face the new guy for another question, someone else entered the clearing and diverted her focus. She knew him right away. You are. This guy looked at Sakura as if he were bored, not at all impressed. Sabaku no Konkaru. Don't worry about it, I don't remember your name either. Her lips were pursed as she whispered, Haruno Sakura. A tiny tick appeared above her left brow. The drawing nin decided to give a brief introduction, saying, Sai. After glancing at him for a brief moment, Konkaru sighed and sat on the ground since he couldn't find anything to lean against. So, you guys are Team 7, right? I was told to join you. The woman with pink hair exclaimed, oh, I see, as she realized they were with them on a mission. Therefore, Sai and Konkaru must be the team's new members, right? Our teacher is. Konkaru interrupted her, saying, our other teammates are Uchiha Sasuke and Uzumaki Naruto, though Naruto is on another mission. Hitaki Kakashi, yes, I know. Konkaru smiled, observing Sakura's mildly glared face. He simply enjoyed cutting off women's speeches. I always enjoyed doing the same thing with Temari. And since he had to be aware of the invasion, he was well versed in the genin teams. But undoubtedly, events transpired differently. HN was Sasuke's greeting to the three as he approached Sai. Jumping into the tree Sai was leaning against, the young Avenger settled down on a sturdy branch and got ready to get bored. About 2 hours later, Kakashi arrived to find Sakura and Sasuke agitated, Sai still sketching, and Konkaru sleeping. Hakun, who had seemingly appeared out of nowhere, bit Konkaru in the ankle and said, well, then. Assuming introductions have been made, I'm here to let you know we'll be having a D-ranked mission. A brief pause. What? Unexpectedly, Sasuke was the first to respond. Hell, Kakashi told him they would be having higher-ranked missions only a few days ago. Well, we were supposed to be having another mission today, but someone else seemed to have finished a mission sooner than expected and nabbed ours. Under his mask, Kakashi grinned. Never would have guessed that from Naruto's first mission. Konkaru suddenly wanted to cry. D. Ranked? I'm thinking that means the same thing as in Suna. It had been ages since he had D-ranked missions in Suna. What the devil kind of torture would Konoha be offering him? Days passed, Sarutobi experimented with D-ranked mission implementations, and Shinobi had missions with multiple other Shinobi. Kinuta Dosu was participating in missions with teams 8, 10, and 7, but he had not yet reached a satisfactory level of synchronization with any of them. With regard to Sabaku no Gaara, the same could be said. His other two siblings caused him less trouble. Sabaku no Konkaru had not yet completed a mission with Team 8, but had collaborated effectively with Teams 7 and 10. Thus far, Sabaku no Temari has only used numbers 8 and 10, and ideally, she will never use number 8 again. Due to a specific Team 8 member who is perverted. At least that's what she said. Sarutobi laughed quietly to himself. After all, every Inuzuka was perverted, or so he thought. He plans to deploy both Gaara and Dosu on a Team Guy mission shortly, and we'll see how things turn out. To their dismay, he had also made arrangements for a Chunin to impart some knowledge of Konoha's past to the 4 foreign shinobi. And in front of him, in his office, was Hitaki Kakashi at that precise moment. The elder said, setting a file aside, "I take it you have a guess on why I have called for you, Kakashi." Kakashi saw one that said, "Administration of Icha volumes." In fact, he was curious to know what else had been written about it. But that would have to wait. Yes, I think this concerns Naruto. The monkey summoner attempted to read Kakashi's expressions but came up empty. Yes. The Anbu is interested in Naruto, greatly. Azuki Yugo's Anbu squad, specialized in infiltration. His infiltration skills are superb, Kakashi. Naruto wanted to know your opinion before he would decide on what to do. Though he is now Chunin and can make the decision himself, of course. The copy.nin said, yes, and he should decide it for himself. Agreed. Kakashi nearly gave a start when he saw Naruto appear next to him, however, he was a Chunin. A highly skilled one at that. Those did not flinch in shock because they were not taken aback. Dude, he's improving. I was not aware of him. I ought to have used my nose before going inside. Naruto quickly bowed his head and said, Hokage. Sama. I've declined the offer, but Azuki Yugo and Hayate Gecko will still be training me in their respective expertise. I also wish to stay under Hitaki Kakashi's command and, if I were to take missions as a Chunin, I want Sabaku no Gaara and Kinuta Dosu as my teammates. The third asked, why those two? Kakashi remained silent. Naruto's requests piqued his interest. The copy ninja surmised that the first two requests had already been approved because the third only asked a question about his third request. The blonde troublemaker smiled broadly and said, hee. You're not the only one who can see all around the village, old man. I've got Fuin Bunshin all over the place. Those two can be a pain in the ass for someone else. The Sandame said, obviously amused, I see, in that case, I have additions to your squad, Uzumaki Naruto. Though it is up to you to decide. The fair-haired woman scowled. I have a squad? Only if you receive a mission where you are the leader. It won't happen too soon, because Kakashi will still be instructing you on how to move a team from point A to B without too much trouble. You'll still be in Team 7 for the time being. But your squad is already known. A squad with a Chunin as its leader is usually consistent of 4 subordinates. Yours will be the ones you aforementioned, and you will select 2 others from 4. The older man laughed at Naruto's confused expression. It'll be hard, because 2 of those are also former enemies. Kakashi stood up straight. What is he considering? Hiruzen nodded his head at both teacher and student. Their names are Tayuya and Kosaka Hanako. Former Sand and Sound Kunoichi. The others you do know of are Hyuga Neji and Inuzuka Kiba. Only they are available to you when you're ordered to do a mission. Former Sand and Sound Nin? Inquired the fair-haired Chunin again. How? This coming from someone who persuaded 3 Sand and 1 Sound Genin to fight alongside him. Replied the third. It's still a bit questionable and they will still be watched, but for now, it seems they are innocent and knew little of the invasion. Kakashi furrowed his brow. Ibiki? Yamanaka? Yes, both. Though one of them did work for Orochimaru, so she might know something about countering their techniques. She will be watched more thoroughly. The person at the bottom of the room sighed. It'll be a while before all that happens, right? So I'm just going to join Sasuke and Sakura again. I still haven't talked to Sasuke since the Chunin exams, he exclaimed with some hesitation. The copy.nin answered, I don't think you have to worry too much about it, Naruto. He's training himself harder than before, but it doesn't look like he's holding a grudge. If anything, I think he wants to fight you again. The third gave one cough. You two are dismissed. After a few days, numerous D-ranked missions were completed, and Sarutobi had ultimately reached its conclusion. It was Yamanaka Inoichi he had to give it to. Sasuke, Sakura, and Sai would make up Team Kakashi. With a promising Genin, Naruto would be creating a Chunin squad. That is, a Genin squad led by him. Temari, Dosu, and Gaara would be his subordinates. Though he wasn't entirely sure about her yet, he had intended to integrate Kosaka Hanako, a former Sound Chunin, into one of Konoha's teams. Jiraiya informed him that he had learned that Sand and Otto had been duped into attacking Konoha together, but that the third Hokage had rejected their request to have any Sunanin they had captured returned. Though she was obviously not interested in staying in Konoha, Kosaka Hanako was a promising kunoichi. She had been confined to a cell for the most of her life, so she had no knowledge of Konoha to share with Suna. The third Hokage considered the situation carefully. Given that he also had the Sabaku siblings, the late Kazukage's children, he would most likely be sending Hanako back to Suna. It was probably best for those three, who really wanted to stay in Konoha. This implied that Tayuya from the sound might be joining Naruto in his cell. Hiruzen had noticed the girl. Based on her chakra levels and her ability to manipulate her cursed seal to the point of raising its level, she most likely would have a difficult time dealing with a high-level Chunin. She might even succeed in winning. Although she was a wild card, she was left with nothing after Orochimaru's death. The others weren't like that. Kidomaru vowed vengeance against all of Konoha and was fiercely devoted to Orochimaru. After learning of his master's passing, Jirubu attempted suicide once more, but naturally failed. Saken was a lethal weapon who would kill anything that appeared to be his opponent, especially if it was wearing a Konoha Hite. 8. Tayuya was irate, but she was irate all the time. Unlike Jirubu, she didn't appear to have given up hope or harbor resentment like Kidomaru did. She hated everyone, really, but she still harbored animosity toward shinobi from Konoha. She might still have significance for Konoha. She was powerful, though. Moving her under a Junin like Kakashi or Guy would probably be a better idea. But he couldn't help but notice how Naruto, like she seemed. The blonde might be able to handle someone of Tayuya's level, but the old Hokage wasn't sure how strong Naruto was. But if Gaara was any guide, he thought Naruto might actually succeed. It is the reason he chose to give it a shot. In the future, Gaara, Dosu, Temari, and Tayuya would make up Naruto's cell. Naruto asked Sasuke as he stood in front of the Avenger and pointed at Sai's face, "Who the hell is this guy?" Sai did not even look at the blonde or his finger, just looked straight ahead. Over the course of a few weeks, Kakashi had been gently teaching Naruto how to be a team leader through their missions. Subtle meaning that Sakura and Sasuke are unaware of. They occasionally had other genin, such as the Suna trio or Dosu, join them during that period. Naruto didn't recognize this guy. Sasuke gave both of his teammates a sidelong glance before returning his attention to the ground. Perched atop a rock, he had a view of the clearing where they usually trained. I forgot his name. Naruto threw his hands in the air and approached Sakura, who was reading a book. "Che. And you're supposed to be a Uchiha. I thought you guys remember everything," Naruto exclaimed. "You guys?" The Uchiha shrugged his shoulders but did not look up from the earth. "Only the important things, Dobi." Naruto flipped him one over his shoulder, but Sasuke evidently didn't even notice, saying, "Whatever, I'm already walking away." Sai was just looking forward in the midst of all that, staring blankly, which eventually caught Sasuke's attention. He then concluded that awkward kids who looked at nothing really bothered him. Meanwhile, Naruto had approached Sakura and said, "Yo, Sakura-chan, what are you reading?" It was still not Kakashi, but it was likely to arrive in an hour. Sasuke.kun gave me a book on fire jutsu. I'm trying to learn the Housenka no Jutsu. It costs less chakra than the Gokyaku, but may take more, depending on how many fire I want to release. This technique may be more suitable to me than the Gokyaku, the blonde replied. "Ooh. Wanna try it out on me?" Sakura whimpered. "Not now, Naruto. Recently, things have been pretty typical," the bookworm pondered as she ignored Naruto's meanderings about his immunity to fire. "I thought Naruto and Sasuke.kun would fight straight away, but they're okay." Sasuke.kun actually seems happier, she scowled, not really paying attention to the scroll she was holding. "But why is Sai still here? We're whole again now that Naruto is back, right?" "Oi, Sakura-chan, you're boring. I'm gonna ask the new kid to spar with me." Sakura's book was in the back of Naruto's mind when he asked, "What did you say? Who's boring?" That is, if he wasn't being yelled at to duck by an invisible Fuin Bunshin. He changed his Fuin Bunshin so that he was the only one who could hear them. Some, like the one following Team 8 through the Forest of Death, were altered differently and made public for everyone to hear. Sakura clenched her teeth, not really giving much thought to the fact that Naruto was facing her when he ducked so easily. "Throw it back to me, Naruto." The blonde picked up the book and shot her a cold look. "Why the hell did you throw it in the first place?" Sakura grabbed the book, shook her head, and carried on reading. "Another thing that has changed is that Naruto isn't as smitten with me as he once was." "Oi, Sumi-san," Naruto said to Sai, noticing the blonde scribbling with ink on a scroll. Sumi intended to say, "Ink. Can you fight or can you only draw?" The boy with black hair just kept drawing, which somewhat enraged the blonde. "Hey, you want to be in our team, right?" How about you start talking back when people talk to you, Unexpectedly, Sai began. Oh. Startling the Jinchuriki. I am your replacement in Team 7. My name is Sai, it's nice to meet you. My replacement? Sai said, raising his voice slightly but not significantly. Oh. I hadn't realized you have impaired hearing. I assume that is why you speak so loud and obnoxious. I apologize for not realizing. Uzumaki Naruto.san. Sasuke cut him short before Naruto could likely maim him, saying, wait a minute, his replacement? Oh, you have hearing problems as we. Sai was interrupted. What do you mean? Assisted Uchiha. Is it because he got promoted to Chunin? I don't have any interest in knowing why I am to replace Naruto.san, so I do not know. I merely am following orders. Sakura, now chiming in, asked, Naruto? You're leaving the team? Why? The blonde glared at Sai and said, hell if I know. This is the first I've heard of it. How come you know this? He said, it's my mission. Sasuke let out a sigh. So he was losing to a guy he still hadn't surpassed on Team 7. I thought this Sai was strong. All he could hope was that he would strengthen him then, Naruto. A confident Sharingan user said, I haven't forgotten about our match in the Chunin exams. One day, we'll have a rematch. The outcome will be different then. Get as strong as you can, cause you won't be able to keep up otherwise. Hey, we'll see about that, bastard, yo. Nobody returned Kakashi's greetings, not correctly, anyway. The question was, why is Naruto leaving the team? You know. Leading a team is quite challenging, Kakashi said, coming up to the breathless blonde. Every student was given a separate assignment by the Junin. It appeared that Naruto was not working on his assignment. What are you working on? He received a laugh in return. It's a secret, sensei. Pretty tiring, though. Figures. The indolent instructor gave his soon.to.be former pupil the upper hand. You need advice? Naruto cast a serious glance at his sensei. Now that you mention it, I've been trying to create food and bunshin. You know anything about those? I've actually never seen those. I know how to create Raiden Bunshin. I just make sure all of the chakra I use to create a clone is infused, completely, with lightning. The result is a clone I usually use for diversions, although it can actually attack with electricity, but electricity alone. I thought so. Here. Naruto muttered, food and bunshin, while performing a seal, but the only thing that materialized next to him was a tiny tornado that vanished almost immediately. I always hate the bunshin technique. It gives me so much trouble whenever I work on one type the first time. Kakashi laughed. After seeing his subordinate nod once, Kakashi turned away and said, so I see. I think you just need to create those more often to get a feel on how much chakra you should use for just one clone. Hey, Kakashi. Sensei? Kakashi gave a single head turn. He was actually reaching for Icha already. Keep a good eye on Sasuke. After a few moments of staring, Kakashi chose to shrug. Don't worry. I always keep a good eye on my students. Even former ones. Anything else? Naruto gave a head nod. Yeah. Hokage. Sama told me I would get 2 ninja who were from Sand and Sound, in my squad. I don't really know how to deal with that. I mean, Gaara and the others, I know I can trust them. But those 2 he mentioned, I don't even remember their names. I wouldn't worry too much about it, Naruto. They've been put through a serious trial, performed by Konoha's 2 best interrogators. Yamanaka Inoichi can infiltrate a person's mind, learning everything about them. Morino Ibiki is an interrogator, but also a torture specialist. If anyone could get past him and be proven innocent, I wouldn't be concerned about it. Not easily persuaded, Kyuubi Jinchuriki said, if you say so, Kakashi. Sensei. He thought about something for a few seconds before answering, what if I find them? Not loyal enough for Konoha. What if I think they're not to be trusted? Yeah, what if I think they are an enemy to Konoha? Am I allowed to kill them? Even if it is by Hokage's orders that they've been put on my team? Even if, as you say, they've been put through various tests to prove they mean no harm to our village? Kakashi paused to consider it and then decided to take his hand off the Icha novel. Well, if you think they're an enemy, you should report it to the Hokage. By the time you will meet them, it may have already been decided they're to be your subordinates. One of the rules in Konoha is not to kill your own. It makes perfect sense, right? I'm not allowed to kill you, even if I think you're an enemy to Konoha right now. I'll have to prove it first, since you are already my student. I can't just go killing my students without a very, very good reason. Naruto let out a sigh. Of course. Now, then. My advice to you as a leader is, Beware of your surroundings, beware of your destination, and beware of your comrades, in that order. Naruto thought to write that one down. Thanks, sensei. You're welcome, Naruto. I'll be off, then. State your purpose. Why the hell would I tell a brat like you, huh? You'd do well to listen, outsider. My friend here is not one who kills without pause. Hey, don't we have two cold ones here? I thought Konoha was a warm and cozy place. Why don't you two morons turn around and start minding your own damn business? You are not from Konoha. You are in Konoha now. State your purpose, Gaara said again. He had lost his Tsunehite. 8. A Konoha headband wrapped around his waist took its place. Kinuta Dosu was standing next to him, glaring at the 4 Kumo.nin in front of them. Now, the former Sound Genin had on a Konoha Hite, 8 as well. Although they had no loyalty towards Konoha, they were allegiance to Uzumaki Naruto, their comrade. What if these two are important people in Konoha? What if, by ignoring their questions, a war would erupt between Kumo and Konoha? What if it's already too late to prevent it? Never bother answering their questions anymore. We should kill them right here and now, to prevent a war. With a smile on his face, Dosu prepared to fight, and Gaara had already opened her gourd. Even though she was only their temporary leader, they all paid attention to her commands. Omoi, get out of the way. And put your sword away. We have been invited to Konoha. There is no need for all of this. Invited? Why should we believe that? With their eyes fixed on the tree where the voice originated, Omoi, Karui, Samui, and Yugito Ni, their acting captain, stared up. A blonde kunoichi with a large fan strapped to her back caught their attention. Before she spoke, only Yugito and Samui had sensed her presence. They're all just genin, Yugito speculated, and yet, they have a lot of talent already. Hey, watch your mouth. Yugito calmed the red-haired girl down with a, Karui. Our Raikage is on a visit. We are his guards. Suddenly, there was laughter from behind them. Yugito's eyes expanded to their fullest. Incredible. I was unaware of this. She pivoted. Boy, Samui said, appearing a little agitated as she turned. That's difficult for me to believe, Naruto said, folding his arms. You four are, more likely, a backup team. I'm sure the Raikage would want stronger guards. Karui was incensed and the others were also offended by the insult, asking, What? Yugito just scowled and narrowed his eyes in response. There's a problem here. Even though he's right in front of me, I can't feel him. Taking a tiny sniff, she discovered she could still smell him. The Biju within her allowed her to have more refined senses. Still, she was concerned. She was a sensor shinobi, able to sense everything around her from a distance of at least a mile. This child had absolutely no chakra surrounding him. Naruto turned to face Gaara and Dosu and said, You are from Kumo. Konoha and Kumo are not really on good terms with each other, are they? This caused Team Yugito to retreat once more. Yugito knew enough to say, that was Shunshin. Definitely needs chakra and a lot of speed to be executed and yet. No trace of any chakra used. This kid is very talented. To be able to totally stifle chakra like that, even from myself. Naruto inquired, You are the captain, right? The three other Konoha nin behind the boy had stopped talking, as Yugito noticed. He leads them, I say. Care to give me a better reason why I should not kill all of you right here? Then it arrived. Killer intention. Though she was accustomed to it, she was still shocked that this brat could be so savage. But Samui and the others were not prepared. They couldn't even move a muscle. This young person is dressed as a Konoha Chunin. My subordinates are all Chunin, and I am a Junin. What is Konoha's current shinobi ranking? There were two other oddities. He didn't use any chakra to quench his extreme blood thirst, and his own subordinates were unaffected. This allowed him to precisely target his killer intent while frightening his opponents with something else entirely. What was it? What's the matter? Cat got your tongue. I see. She was always irritated by that comment. With the intention of showing the boy some manners, Yugito charged forward, but instead she took a powerful blow to the face that sent her flying into the tree behind her. Naruto exclaimed, Whoa, didn't think you'd be attacking me first. Naruto was in the same spot throughout everything, so Gaara, Dosu, and Temari were unable to follow his movements. But by now they were sick of him. Omoi, Karui, and Samui were astounded. In one instant, Yugito was moving faster than they could keep up with, and in the next, she was lying on the ground with pieces of a tree trunk all around her. Yugito, who had recently been given some Kyuubi chakra, said, But now I'm allowed to attack back. Konoha will not be in any danger. I won't allow it, Her eyes grew very wide as she saw Naruto. Naruto began to move in Yugito's direction, but Samui and the others were still immobile. Just as Naruto was about to lose it all, Kakashi materialized next to him. A Konoha Junin. Even after taking a lot of hits from Naruto, Yugito was more than willing to keep fighting. Staring at the three Kumo Chunin who were able to move again, the copy ninja asked his blonde pupil, Naruto, stand down. They're here on guard duty for their cage. Did you instigate this? Hey, before I did anything, they refused to answer Gaara, who wanted to know why they were here. They did answer eventually, but what they said was not really believable. I mean, look at how easily I took care of their leader. How can they be guards for a cage? Yugito was on his way back, having recovered. That's Hitaki Kakashi, the copy ninja. And did he call the child Naruto? She decided to correct Naruto's remark. You caught me off guard, brat. That won't happen again. Naruto turned his back on her and her group and said, yeah, sure. He gave his new team the order, let's head out. See you later, Kakashi, sensei. He waved over his shoulder and said, ha, my apologies for his behavior. He doesn't take well to anything that might endanger the safety of Konoha. Karui glanced first at the Konoha Junin and then at Team Naruto's retreating rear. It's unbelievable that he won that little argument against Yugito, sensei. Omoi stood next to her and rested a hand on her shoulder. He was probably lucky. I mean, Yugito. Sensei kicks ass once she really gets going. For the first time, Samui, the third member of Team Yugito, said, perhaps. But he's strong. I think we were lucky. Kakashi cast a scowl at Yugito's attendants. Well, get ready to get to know them better. They will be with you during your stay in Konoha. The Jinchuriki of Kumo nodded. With a sigh, she began applying some light healing jutsu to her face. Judging from those eyes of his just then, he's probably a Jinchuriki too. Time to gather some information. Their ranks are totally different than ours. We'll be heading off, then, Kakashi-san. Of course. Kakashi observed them leaving out of the corner of his eye. They're going to have a tough time. The Raikage was seated in the Hokage's office, across from the Hokage, and said, so Otto and Suna attacked Konoha, but Konoha is completely unscathed. I must say, that's pretty good. I take it you knew beforehand? Hiruzen answered, that's a logical assumption. We had heard rumors about an attack, so we tightened security, but that is all we did. The Raikage, also known as A, went on, it really is impressive that two countries attack you and you're unharmed. I've come here to talk about certain suspicions I have. Suspicions? What do you mean? You've definitely heard of a company named Akatsuki, A said, getting the older man to nod. S. Ranked criminals, all missing. Nin. Jiraiya had told the third exactly this. Now, it has come to my attention that Orochimaru is a member of the Akatsuki. So, did Suna and Otto use Orochimaru and thus, Akatsuki, to attack Konoha? I've heard Orochimaru was the leader of Otto. I've also heard he was in Akatsuki, but that he had run away from the organization. An eyebrow was raised by the Raikage. He ran away? Someone like Orochimaru? It's what my intel brought me, so it's not really a fact that he left. They truly might have hired Akatsuki, then. I have more information concerning Akatsuki being used by Earth Country. And rumors have it its roots lie in Kirigakure. Hiruzen answered, you seem to have a lot of information, Raikage. Don't know. I take it you're going somewhere with this? One nod from the younger Kage of the two. I have information regarding Akatsuki, but I believe you do, too. I've received word that the organization is after the Biju. So they're after all the Jinchuriki. I have two under my command. You have at least one, I believe. I know not what happened 14 years ago, but I don't believe something like the Kyuubi can be killed. But, my sensor shinobi have not sensed a Jinchuriki. Like presence in Konoha. Hiruzen grinned. Naruto wouldn't be able to be found since his outfit allowed him to so effectively suppress his chakra. And the same could be said about Gaara and the Gogyu Fuin on his stomach. So, what are you saying? I'm saying you can hide your shinobi well. My information gatherers are not ignorant, Hokage. Dono, we've heard of Suna's Jinchuriki, Sabaku no Gaara. How he turned from Sanagakure to Konohagakure. He is definitely the Ichibi Jinchuriki. But Konoha is also housing the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. The Sandame's brow went up. You make a lot of assumptions, Raikage, Dono. A folded his arms and said, look. We have the Nibi Jinchuriki and the Hachibi Jinchuriki, which you probably already knew. This organization is after my shinobi and after yours. I don't really trust Kirigakure or Iwagakure because of their involvements with this Akatsuki. The alliance between Konoha and Suna has been broken due to the invasion, and Suna is also involved with Akatsuki. I'm guessing you know by now where I'm going with this. If I didn't know any better, I'd say you were offering an alliance? The Raikage regarded the third closely. Yes, but I have a demand. One demand. The third laughed, forgetting his astonishment. You speak as if we've already consented. I alone cannot decide whether Kumo and Konoha will be allied forces. True. But when you have your meeting with your council, I want you to let my demand be known. The summoner of monkeys nodded, which is? I want Danzo. He recollected the times he used to hop from one rooftop to another, observing the surroundings and ensuring that nothing went wrong in his village. There were days when he would blend in with the shadows and nobody would ever know he was there, not even the Anbu. For his benefit only. Or them. He would be damned if anything were to happen to the boy who the Yondaime Hokage had entrusted him with keeping safe. If he didn't do his job properly, Kushina would probably force herself to be dead in order to kill him, he thought to himself. Yes, he would not have been shocked if she had succeeded. Being the Hokage, he was naturally unable to watch Naruto at times. However, he compensated for most of it with his unique orb, which allowed him to see the entire village. Thus, he observed the boy develop into a skilled shinobi, but he never would have thought that the boy would be the only member of his graduating class to reach Chunin status. He had really developed at an unsettling pace. Now, with his team behind him, the rookie Chunin stood before him. For this mission, Kankuru would be accompanying his team. The elderly shinobi professor began. I'm sure you'll find this mission quite a hassle, but I assure you, you will like the rewards. Naruto inquired. Rank pay? Since they hadn't been Konoha nins for very long, the blonde's subordinates still didn't feel very at ease around the third Hokage, which is why they were always quiet in the Hokage's office. He had to suppress a smile as he watched the others, who would not be paid, frown. Naruto will be the only one who gets paid for this one, but I'm afraid it won't be S rank, Naruto. He turned to face the others besides Naruto and said, it's not like you won't get paid. More like, your pay has already been invested in something. You'll be receiving places of your own this week. Apartments, in the same complex as Naruto's. Naruto thought this was headed in a nice way. Although he enjoyed the company, there were moments when he just wanted to be by himself. There were moments when he could completely let his training run wild and no one would know. So, what's the mission, old man? Help the team from Kumo during the Raikage's stay in Konoha. Help? Help them do what? Help them if they need help, but more importantly, I want you to watch them. The Chunin tipped his head, just watch them. Wow, that's an easy mission. What rank is this mission, old man? Hiruzen glanced at the blonde for a moment. B. Rank, really? Kumo. Nins aren't really liked by the majority of Konoha, so perhaps there will be situations where you'll have to stop someone from Konoha who will try to harm them. Naruto questioned, what? Why would someone try to harm them? You really haven't been paying attention during the academy, huh, Naruto? The third sat at his desk, thinking about what the Raikage had said. The third had demands, just as the leader of the Cloud did. Considering Fire's previous alliance with Lightning, Hiruzen felt he was entitled to make more demands than the other. Actually, though, he was thinking of just one. To allow Naruto and his group to spend a week in Kumo so they can learn the village from the inside out. Since the Raikage would be watching them all, this would obviously be permitted. However, Naruto now had his Fuin Bunshin. Sensor.nin wasn't even able to detect those. Furthermore, he was positive that Kumo lacked shinobi, unlike the Hyuga, Aburame, or Inazuka. Superior Tracker.nin. So Naruto's arrival was ideal. This would allow the blonde to cross the barrier that guarded each village, enter, and infiltrate without fear. Perfect. He would be fully informed about Kumo. The fire leader gave a nod of approval and began enumerating the information he wanted Naruto to learn while he was there. Naruto chose to complete the mission haphazardly because it wasn't too difficult. The Raikage would only be here for a few days, as far as he knew. He then divided his team into smaller groups. He was going to be with Gaara. Dosu, Tamari, and Kankuru were in the other group. He and Gaara weren't currently keeping an eye on the Kumo squad. Naturally, Naruto did scatter a few Fuin Bunshin among his teammates. But he and Gaara were somewhere else now. The end of the valley. The Shukaku Jinchuriki asked Naruto as they were strolling through the woods, "Why are we here, Naruto?" The two Chunin exchanged a brief, amused laugh. "To train, of course. Since you're a Jinchuriki like I am, I think we're best suited to train with one another, right? We can help each other." Gaara shrugged, not sure what to train in considering his prisoner Biju. The blonde grinned viciously and said, I've learned something interesting, Gaara. He stopped walking, and Gaara did too. You're going to love it. I couldn't show you this before, because we weren't true comrades before. But now I can help you. The thing is, this thing we're going to do is going to unleash a massive load of chakra. Mainly, yours. So I don't want to be too close to Konoha when we do this. What do you mean? The redhead asked, completely lost for words. The Gogyu Fuin on your stomach is something I meant to be temporarily. I have a permanent solution. Gaara was nodding. We're going to fight the Shukaku, together. I've learned how to completely overtake the Kyuubi. You and me are going to overtake the Shukaku. Before we do that, though, you're going to have to do a few things. We're going to fight the Shukaku? Gaara asked with confidence, knowing he was a formidable opponent. He was not a fool, though, and he couldn't defeat a Biju. Naruto began to reassure him, Gaara. Don't worry, I've got the Kyuubi on my side, kind of. The redhead, unsure of what to say, swallowed slowly. The blonde began to walk once more. Now, for this to work, you're going to go through a trial. That's why we're here. In Kumo, there's a place like this, where you can face yourself. The blonde was followed by the former Suna.nin once more. Naruto made his way through a few bushes and onto the precipice. Between the two stone statues, they could see the waterfall in the distance. Senju Hashirama and Uchiha Madara's statues. That's a waterfall of truth, Kaigen no Heisen. A place where you will face the evil you. Evil? Asked Gaara again. Naruto gave a melancholic little smile. Not necessarily evil. But for you, it'll probably be familiar. You'll face the hatred inside you, to overcome it. When I first met you, I think you let that side of you overrule you. He stopped. This will be hard, mental. Wise, but it needs to be done before we can face the Shukaku. Naruto himself chose to train while two of his Fuin Bunshin, a good 20 or so Kage Bunshin, and a few regular Bunshin were keeping an eye on Gaara, who was sitting in front of the waterfall of truth, training without using a spyglass. He was a little anxious about Gaara and confronting the Shukaku, but he recalled the time his future self had allowed him to act similarly. Retrograde, he was aware that the way the villagers all looked at him wasn't really how he felt. It was okay to be alone, he would always laugh it off. To be despised and disregarded. They will be viewed as filthy, devils, and worse. However, he was anything but happy about it. This demonstrated it. You should burn the entire village down to the ground. Those were his thoughts, many times over. You should murder every single villager and shinobi with your utmost attention. Murder them slowly and make them suffer as long as possible. Yes, as he watched his own reflection appear in front of him, he realized what he was hearing. This, according to Namikaze Sensei, is another aspect of who he is. A portion concealed within him. The deep, seated hatred within him. You know I'm right and you agree with me. And in a way, he did agree with him. At least he knew why his partner was making these statements. However, he was now aware of his parents' identities, his destiny, and the type of power that was inside of him. He was also aware that there was more to the part of him than just hatred staring back at him. It was all that he refused to admit. The person in front of him represented his innermost feelings and secrets. Like him, he had nowhere to let it out. He responded by speaking. Let's do it together. We shouldn't be ignoring ourselves any longer. He had to battle the Kyuubi after that. To beat the Biju, he had to use every resource at his disposal. His senjutsu, food and ninjutsu, multiple kinjutsu, Madan ninjutsu, and an immense amount of chakra. The Kyuubi still had the advantage. He was not alone in this, though. He was receiving assistance from his future self, who would occasionally toss a casual Rasen shuriken and keep the Kyuubi occupied while the younger Naruto would exert great force on the Kyuubi's chakra. When the Kyuubi's chakra was finally fully obtained, he and his future self were standing in front of a Kyuubi with no more chakra. A Biju vanquished. So what now? A demon's voice bellowed over them. Victory seems to be yours, at the moment. But that chakra will eventually come back to me. Something happened that caused the Kyuubi to enlarge his eyes and say, you're wrong. Out of thin air, the older looking Naruto conjured up a scroll, which he then turned so the Kyuubi could read the writing on it. This is a key. A key for Naruto's Shiki Fuin. Now, we've obviously already used this key to open the door of your cage. This key has 3 functions, though. It can become a source for lingering chakra. Mainly, the chakra you've just given Naruto. What? The future Naruto threw multiple Rasen shuriken at the Kyuubi, making it jump back a little bit because the Kyuubi was helpless without its chakra. The legendary fox was subsequently once more imprisoned. Not the same cage as before. The future Naruto hoped his younger self would say, "I'm sorry I have to do this, Kyuubi. In time, I'll hopefully find a way to release you without anyone getting hurt." The older Naruto said, looking a little dejected, "This key can also moderate the seal." "Naruto, we're done here." The elder Naruto was unfazed by the younger one's glowing aura and abundance of chakra surrounding him. "We have a lot to discuss now that you have access to all of the Kyuubi's chakra." Finish the flashback recalling the battle with the Kyuubi, Naruto thought, "Man, Namikaze Sensei is so powerful." He also remembered the discussion he had with the person he would become after that altercation. Although the Kyuubi was a hateful being, he was also a part of a larger plan. The blonde shaped a Rasen shuriken and pointed it toward the sky, but he was not in sage mode. "I can already throw it without being in sage mode, but can I turn it up a notch?" Immediately after hurling the chakra shuriken into the air, he sealed food and cage Rasen shuriken. After that, all he could see was darkness. In the middle of the night, hand seals flashed, creating a tiny campfire. They were heading back to their village after completing a mission. It was a straightforward C-rank mission. Seated before the fire, Hitaki Kakashi observed his pupils doing the same. "Sai will start first watch, the rest of us will get some sleep until we've all had our turns. After Sai, it's Sasuke's turn, then Sakura and finally, me." Sakura gave Sai a small glare before settling into her sleeping bag. The first person on guard duty would sleep the longest without needing to be woken, so they would say, "I wish I was the first to stand watch." Kunoichi, who had pink hair, turned to face Kakashi. "Nay, Kakashi. Sensei." Kakashi opened his one eye, which Sakura could hardly see through the fire. She inquired, "Have you heard anything about Naruto?" Though Sasuke didn't turn in his sleeping bag, he was still inquisitive. "Well, nothing's classified, so I can tell them everything I know," Kakashi said, obviously unaware of the aspects of Naruto that was classified. "What do you want to know?" "What's he doing now?" The seasoned shinobi gave a nod of his head. "Well, he has guard duty in Konoha." Sakura, twisting her feet in and out of her sleeping bag, thought, "That sounds pretty simple. I figured he would be getting dangerous missions outside of Konoha." While it might not be very dangerous, it is very important. The Raikage is currently staying in the Leaf Village, and Naruto's team is in charge of guarding and watching the Raikage's guards. Sakura gave a sound of admiration. "Naruto's team? Who's in his team?" Sasuke's question caught Sakura and Kakashi off guard. They both assumed that the Uchiha had fallen asleep by now. "As far as I'm aware of," Kakashi appeared to reflect. "It's those former Suna.nin, the Sabaku siblings, don't know if they're all in his team, though, and that former Sound Genin, that bandaged guy. I don't really remember his name, though." Finally, Sasuke said, "Kinuta Dosu." He would never forget how he had been defeated in the Forest of Death by Dosu and the other two Sound.nin. "Yeah, and those Sabaku are Gaara, Temari and Kankuro." Sakura continued. "They're all fairly powerful." Sasuke went on, "So, who's their instructor?" Kakashi replied, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world, "Naruto is. Those others are still genin." Sakura and Sasuke were trying to process this information, their eyes wide open. Kakashi allowed the silence to stretch out before saying, "I've also heard that his team isn't complete yet." He then continued, "Also, he was asked to join the Anbu a few weeks ago. He had a trial he aced perfectly, but he declined, in an effort to inspire Sasuke to continue his training after a while." Sasuke was utterly speechless, even inside his own head, and Sakura was much the same. "That's all I know. I haven't talked that much with him ever since the Chunin exams. It seems you two haven't either." Both of them were silent for a moment, considering the statement. In a whisper, Sakura said, "Nay, Kakashi. Sensei. What about this Sai? He's really strange." The copy.nin considered for a moment whether or not to divulge the details he knew about Sai. "Well, he's a former Anbu." His two students were dumbfounded once more. Though Sasuke was aware that Sai was superior to Genin in rank. "Anbu?" The Uchiha smiled. "Yes, he would need to do better than this strange ink guy. He would have taken a step toward defeating Itachi." After a week, Naruto and Gaara were making their way cautiously through the gates that led to the Leaf. Gaara had changed significantly in appearance. He appeared less tense and the gourd was no longer on his back. "All right, somewhat," Naruto informed Temari, Kankuro, and Dosu a few days ago. 6, to be exact. that he and Gaara would be absent for a few days in order to assist Gaara with a new technique. It wouldn't be too suspicious because the blonde would be leaving a hanged shadow clone of Gaara and a shadow clone of him. Now, the two were moving toward the others, prepared to send them home to watch over the Kumo team during their final 2 days in Konoha. The Raikage was apparently almost ready to settle his business in Konoha. Naruto turned his head and smiled at Gaara, who was oblivious. The redhead was wearing the same clothes that the blonde had given him. While Naruto's appearance had changed slightly, none of the seals had changed. Since he was now a Chunin, he needed to make a small wardrobe adjustment. Using the same seals from his previous vest, he put his Chunin vest into use. However, his Chunin vest was very dark red. Both his fingerless gloves and his now thigh-length black pants remained black. He had 2 dark red sheaths for swords that were not in them on his back, and he wore dark red sandals with a few new seals on them. Gaara was never able to figure out why the blonde had 2 sheaths when he knew Naruto only had 1 sword. If the blonde was required to respond to the query, why 2, he too would not know the solution. However, Gaara altered his appearance more than the other one. Now, minus the seals, he wore the same outfit as Naruto. Gaara's chakra presence increased dramatically now that he and the Shukaku had a better relationship. A relationship that differed greatly from Naruto's with the Kyuubi. Naruto had no choice but to make Gaara wear his unique shinobi outfit, which prevented even Censor.nin from seeing him. And the gourd wasn't there, it was easy, he was done using it. Now, instead of drawing sand from the gourd, his armor of sand and shield of sand were both automatic. Gaara's attire, however, was black and dark brown, as opposed to Naruto's black and dark red. The two might not be chakra present because of their outf. But they walked carefree and everyone knew they were not to be messed with. He had learned about the Akatsuki from Naruto. Gaara made the decision to train as hard as he could since he didn't like that a group was pursuing them for their Biju. Gaara would be a very strong second in command because Naruto had made him the team's second in command. Goo. Gaara? Temari saw the Shukaku Jinchuriki smile, and it wasn't missed. Gaara was rarely seen smiling, even after the siblings discovered Naruto. Haha, Gaara. Chan, your sister is utterly amazed. Shukaku, quiet down. And remember, I'd prefer if you just called me Gaara. Human, it's not gonna happen. Hearing the Shukaku laugh at him in his mind, Gaara growled. Oh my god, raccoon. Lining up beside Temari, Konkaru questioned, where's your gourd, Gaara? Gaara replied, I don't need it anymore. Dosu crossed over into Temari's space. Interesting. You now have the exact same presence as Naruto. It's the outfit, I assume? With a wry grin, Naruto looked at the former sound.nin. How do you know? The bandaged nin seemed thoughtful and said, several frequencies. It erases a lot of things, but not sound nor smell. That outfit, it proves very advantageous. The blonde gave Dosu a smile. You guys want it, too? I kind of like how I look now. The group's puppeteer scowled. Naruto had already sent numerous Fuin Bunshin and Cage Bunshin transformed as them after the Kumo team, who were currently somewhere else. Naruto laughed, seriously, Konkaru? With all the make up and stuff? It's not make up, bastard. Ignoring the argument, the sound user took a step forward out of mild curiosity and asked, you have more, then? Kyuubi's vessel replied, nope. I can make it so that your current outfits have the same attributes as mine. Just hand me your clothes and stuff and I'll fix it for all of them. After you wash them, though, I'll have to redo it. Konkaru seemed even more satisfied than Temari was with that. Good, your outfit is dandy and all, but I like mine better. Dosu said, so it's Fuinjutsu. Intriguing. That Orochimaru was never any good with those arts. Anyway, drop off sets of your clothes at my place tomorrow, since all of you now have a place of your own. Naruto said. For now, Gaara and me are going to babysit the Kumo team. You guys go get some rest or go train or something. Temari shot one final, poignant look at Gaara. A respectful and proud look. She dashed to catch up with Dosu and Konkaru, who were deep in conversation. Hey, we're pretty awesome, Gaara. The redhead couldn't suppress a laugh. Thank you, Uzumaki Naruto, for everything. It had been a long time since Gaara had felt this good. Now he had a house, family, and even acquaintances. He felt more powerful than before. She hadn't been taking things easy since the Chunin exams. Despite her increasing training, she continued to struggle against her teammates. Especially Shino. She was sitting against a tree right now, panting a lot, and Kurenai was standing beside her, watching Kiba and Shino spar as intently as possible. Since they could easily jump around the bug user and were aware of the bugs Shino was spreading, Kiba and Akamaru were much faster than Shino. "Che! You should know by now I can tell when there's a bug on me." But Shino was also moving, not exactly still. He found Kiba to be a frustrating opponent, but Kiba strengthened him. Kiba was unable to approach Shino too closely for fear of attracting an excessive number of draining bugs. However, Shino would also constantly have to be on the lookout for Akamaru's repulsive P attack or the sporadic Gatsuga that would tear across the clearing. Which, of course, was nothing Shino couldn't manage. Kurenai smirked at her pupils, who appeared to be about the same level. Then, with caution so as not to startle the spar, she flinched as Naruto and Gaara passed by her. The mistress of Genjutsu hadn't even sensed their approach. Nah. Naruto.kun. The Uzumaki and Sabaku turned to face Hinata and halted their progress. Naruto gave her a sincere smile as he nodded. "Hinata, how's it going?" "Eh. Oh." Hinata summoned the bravery. I'm fine. How are you, Naruto.kun?" "Never better," the blonde exclaimed. Then he gave Gaara a thumbs up. "This here's Gaara. Perhaps you remember him, from the Chunin exams?" She bowed graciously and said, "Yes, nice to meet you, Gaara.kun. I am Hyuga Hinata." Shino and Kiba had stopped fighting and were observing the exchanges. To their surprise, though, they witnessed Gaara bow back once. Likewise, Hinata.san. Kurenai pondered, "I've heard about Naruto getting his own team. It appears that things have improved with Gaara." As they stood a short distance apart from the others, Kiba said to his teammate, "Whoa, they seem like really good friends, huh, Shino?" Their group had witnessed Gaara decimate a rain team in the Forest of Death. After that, they had heard the redhead say they would pursue Uzumaki Naruto. At the time, Shino had asked the Fuin Bunshin, who was supposed to be defending them during the Forest of Death test, if he knew that Gaara, who at the time was still a Sand Shinobi, was pursuing him. For that one, they never did receive a response. However, they could now see that they were friends. The dog user motioned for Akamaru to follow him to where the others were standing, saying, "He sure knows who to pick as friends." Standing where he was, Shino scowled at Gaara and Naruto. "They appear to be devoid of chakra, but my bugs are more aware of this." As he joined the others, the Inuzuka exclaimed, "Yo, Naruto. How's life? You're a Chunin now, right?" With a thumbs up, the blonde answered, "Yeah, life's great. How's training?" Kiba nodded backwards at the spot where the bug user was still standing, giving him a sour look. Training with Shino is always so annoying. Naruto joked, "Keep it up and you're gonna sound like Shikamaru." Naruto.kun. Naruto exclaimed, taken aback since Kurenai had approached him and requested his attention. "If you still wish, I can help you with your genjutsu now. I've found myself with spare time ever since the Chunin exams." For the briefest of moments, Naruto gave the woman a mild glare before letting it swim away from his face. He mumbled something about awkward situations and sighed, "Thanks, I guess. But I already have someone working with me on that. Gaara, let's go. For what it's worth, I apologize for not being able to help you before." Kiba turned from his teacher to the couple leaving when he suddenly remembered how Naruto had approached them months earlier, asking for their sensei's assistance, and saw Naruto wave his arm over his shoulder. "Yeah, whatever." Kiba shouted, defending his teacher, "Hey," she apologized, "Naruto." After giving Kiba a red-eyed glare that caused the dog-like boy to wince, Naruto pivoted and turned back around. "Like I said, whatever." Kurenai put her hand on her subordinate's shoulder and said, "It's okay, Kiba. Naruto.kun has had it pretty rough. I understand his response." Kiba was glaring at the retreating backs of Gaara and Naruto as Shino joined them, saying, "What do you mean, he's had it rough? How in the hell?" At that moment, his eyes seemed red. Kurenai watched as realization struck Kiba's face. "Do you remember how you treated him when he asked me for help, Kiba? How you said he had no friends? How you seemed to hate him, even? Well, you weren't the only one who felt that way about him." Shino went on to say, "Everyone felt that way. I have observed. He is hated for reasons unknown to me. But if I were to say, I don't think he deserves such hate for simple pranks he performed during his younger days." Kurenai nodded, seeing how Shino realized that his hatred stemmed from something else entirely rather than the practical jokes. All she said to confirm Shino's silent inquiry was, "Correct, Shino." The Aburame nodded, as always, his deductive abilities impeccable. N. Naruto.kun. Hinata's sudden pursuit of the two startled Shino, Kiba, and even Kurenai. Kurenai stopped Kiba from jumping after her, saying, Wait, Hinata. Their teacher said, leave her alone. I think this could be interesting. Shino sent a few bugs after Hinata, but she shook her head at him. It's admirable that he guards his team. Nah. Naruto.kun. When Hinata approached the two Jinchuriki, they were already engaged in conversation, separate from Team 8. Turning to face the female Hyuga, Naruto asked, Hinata, what's wrong? With complete focus. Hinata flushed. She probably hadn't seen Naruto staring at her like this before. Anyo. That's when Naruto realized Hinata had changed a little. She appeared to be a little more assured about how she looked. Her bangs continued to cover the upper part of her eyes, and her dark blue hair now hung just below her shoulders. He said, calmly, you look good, Hinata. Little did he know that Hinata would take offense at that, and she blushed even more. Looking at Hinata's face, he assumed she had a cold or something. Are you alright? He asked. We're on our way to a mission right now. You want to join us, Hinata? It's boring guard duty and no one ever told me I couldn't bring more people with me, so. When Hinata looked up, she saw that Gaara had his arms crossed and was also staring at her, as was Naruto. Yes. Naruto turned again, grinning. Maybe you can tell me what you wanted to say to me on the way, Let's go. The cage Bunshin Naruto had created, hanged into his current team, was dispelled on the opposite building as soon as he, Gaara, and Hinata landed on the roof of the building housing the Kumo ninjas. To give the impression that he was still working on his mission, the blonde had made his cage Bunshin become a member of his own team. He was acting sincere now. Hey, now that you're here, Hinata, could you use Byakugan to see what these Kumo shinobi are doing in their own apartment? The Chunin responded. Yes. Following a brief pause, Byakugan. Gaara made the decision to observe the villagers going about their everyday lives on the building's edge. The male member of the team is the one who is still sleeping. Hinata began. The two women are talking to each other. You know, Hinata? I was always wondering if a Hyuga could read lips. Can you, too? Naruto asked, observing her shake her head. He realized something then. It might come in handy, especially since you have that Byakugan. Wait a minute, two women? Where's the third? With a hint of fear, Hinata replied, behind us. With composure, Naruto and Gaara turned their heads. Yugito squinted at the three of them. You're not the only one who can sneak up on someone. Naruto and Gaara were both addressed by the Nekomata Jinchuriki as they said, you two haven't been watching us for quite some time. I can easily distinguish a clone from a real shinobi, boy. Gaara turned back to the street below as Naruto smiled at her. Unsure of what to do, Hinata turned off her Byakugan. She nodded to Naruto, who could see she was referring to Gaara when she said, it seems I can't sense the other either now. You have an interesting team, Uzumaki Naruto. Rakage. Sama is almost finished with his business here in Konoha. The blonde approached the marginally taller Kumo Kunoichi and said, you seem to be wanting something, ni Yugito. Naruto discovered their entire names when they received their mission. A spar. Your team against my team. You wish to see how Konoha ranks at shinobi? Or do you want to find out what skills my team possesses? The brunette replied. I don't see why I should agree to this. I don't trust you. There was a chuckle. She wanted to say more, but Naruto persisted, saying, of course you don't. My team is consistent of genin, yours of chunin. Why would you even suggest something like this in the first place? Your team seems oddly put together. It intrigues me, was Yugito's honest response. Kumo already has a lot of intel on Konoha, and I assume it's the same the other way around. I'm not interested in finding out more. I'm interested in why they put all of the remnants of the invasion under your command. Remnants? Naruto asked once more. The cage children. Yugito smiled as Gaara turned to look at him, looking at least somewhat interested now, and an Nin. Chunin, the blonde, growled. Are you? Gaara abruptly interrupted him. Uzumaki. Taiko. He addressed me as captain. Inside, Naruto scowled. I will face her team, alone. The Kumo Junin gave a sneer. You think you can face 3 Chunin by yourself? Trust me, I know of your specialties, but that doesn't matter. By specialties, she was referring to Jinchuriki, no doubt. Naruto's eyes narrowed. She is aware. Is she aware that I am also one? We will see. I have never been defeated by anyone except Uzumaki. Taiko. I hardly believe anyone can defeat me as I am now. Yugito whistled. Fu. You've got a lot of arrogance, boy, and Naruto had to admit, he understood. It was no small accomplishment to defeat your Biju, and Gaara truly felt like the world was his oyster. She grinned like a cat and said, okay, if you insist. My team versus one of your subordinates. All of your subordinates carry the same rank as I3 Chunin versus Gaara. I don't think that's fair. Her smile persisted. Hey, he suggested it. Suddenly, Naruto grinned back. No, I mean, perhaps you should help your subordinates. I have faith in Gaara. But to make things interesting, how about a bet? Samui was not at all fond of it. Was their acting instructor hoping to pit them against a Chunin subordinate? Between the three of them and a genin? The boy with red hair who was a short distance ahead of them caused her to scowl. Despite his intimidating appearance, he was still a genin. However, she was never one to be taken lightly. The Chunin leader, Naruto, was perched on a tree branch, poring over a scroll. A woman had appeared, her eyes blatantly revealing that she was a Hyuga. Samui, in contrast to her two teammates, readied herself as though she were going up against a formidable foe. I don't think I have to use my sword for this, Omoi? Karui laughed. I was hoping I could smash this kid's face in. Ever since that day he talked back to us. Omoi gave a single nod of agreement. Though he was not sure why Yugito had set this up, he was never against a little extra practice. Maybe Killer Bee was watching them from somewhere, giving them a test in secret. Don't pick on the weak, or something like that. Given that their current foe was a genin? Karui cried out to Naruto, Oi, I think you'd better back him up. Gaara's voice was as dead as they remembered it being, saying, No, I will defeat the three of you by myself. Alright, Karui complained, not fond of Gaara's vacant stare. Ready to get your ass kicked? Samui retreated a little, aware that Karui would unavoidably charge in. Omoi would support her. Gaara kept his arms crossed over one another and said, Come. Karui surged ahead with remarkable velocity, with Omoi at his sides. They were taken aback when Gaara turned into sand and a sandstorm erupted all around them. Genjutsu? Karui exclaimed. Omoi said, suddenly reaching for his sword, Well, then we're both in the same one. Samui's not in here. That Kunoichi said, Shit, there's no escape from this. Abruptly, a massive sand wave swept over them from behind. Omoi screamed, charging his sword with electricity. Crap, Shasen. Karui swiftly trailed behind Omoi through the gap he had made in the sand, only to discover themselves inside a dome of sand that closed as soon as Omoi's previous opening closed once more. Omoi smiled and infused his sword with lightning once more. Hey, your technique is weak against lightning, sand user. Like Omoi, Karui also reached for her sword. And then, with the force of an avalanche, the dome collapsed down upon them. From the outside, Samui had seen her two teammates engulfed in a tornado of sand and, a few moments later, rendered unconscious on the ground. His skills are extraordinary. I cannot allow myself to be struck or imprisoned by them. She turned to look around, but Gaara was nowhere to be seen. Then they arrived. 20 Gaaras emerged from the earth, all sand clones, their spears of hardened sand pointed toward her. You have no chance of victory against me. Yugito's gaze grew wide. They are powerless. He is too powerful, she said, turning to face Naruto. Glancing at the smug Samui, she said, and he's even stronger. However, Samui is almost a Junin level, so you shouldn't undervalue her. Gaara's eyes grew slightly wide as Samui abruptly disappeared. Bunshin. However, he wasn't concerned because, in the end, he wasn't actually there either. Even though they had nothing to aim at right now, his sand clones were ready to spear anything in their path. Gaara was hiding underground when Samui said, It seems the real one isn't here. Gaara was a little startled. The ground rumbled suddenly, and Gaara smiled, wondering how the sand clones would be dealt with. Genjutsu. Clones won't succumb to illusions, after all. She found out. In particular, the space he was hiding in. Chakra? Samui was piercing the earth a few inches above him with her sword, sending lightning chakra tumbling to the hiding place of Gaara. At that moment, every sand clone burst into 100 spears, all aimed towards the Samui that was attacking. However, the Kunoichi effortlessly sidestepped every attack and kept her sword buried in the earth. She executed one seal while evading the attacks of Gaara's clones. Raiden, Ochi Unagi. Gaara felt electricity jolt through his body and clenched his teeth. Is it possible for her to launch an attack using her sword remotely? However, the attack was weak, and Gaara easily defeated it. With a start, the Shukaku holder rose up from the earth, appearing entirely new, and saw Samui standing a few feet ahead of him with her sword back in her hands. All of his sand clones had already vanished. Interesting. He is not hurt. This is a genin. I sent quite a bit of chakra through my sword. The blonde Kumo ninja thought to herself, it's hard enough to attack him directly, as she got ready once more. Grinning, Gaara performed a single-hand gesture, Suna Shigur. Already, Yugito had looked up and noticed a sand cloud over Samui that appeared to be raining down on the girl in question. Samui charged at Gaara, preparing to slit her sword across her chest, but Sand's shield deflected her blow. No matter where I go, his sand rain attack follows me, even toward himself, she came to realize. Either way, this sand shield is keeping him safe. Leaping backward and dodging more sand grains, she charged her sword with electricity once more. This ought to pierce that barrier of his. The rain abruptly stopped, and Gaara's arms weren't crossed over one another. You're the only one who seems to have gotten past my warming up. Your two other teammates were quite abysmal. Gaara took a position. I'll fight seriously now. Samui got herself ready. Naruto had closed the book he was reading and was still perched on the tree branch. He didn't think anyone would defeat Gaara this far. This Samui was rather impressive. But she could not carry on like this at this point. She's pretty good. Remarkably, Yugito whipped her head back to see Naruto trailing behind her. He's the only one who can come up behind me and get away with it. A moment ago, he had been reading Icha Icha on that same tree branch. So is he. I didn't expect him to so easily deal with the others. Samui is something else, though. Naruto gave a shrug. We'll see. Samui studied her foe warily on the battlefield. He has adopted a new position. The blonde made the decision to dash forward, or rather, let her shadow dash forward, a swift bunshin. He's not going to stand still now. It seemed as though she was rushing forward herself because it was moving too quickly. She was shocked to see a massive, marked looking claw of sand emerge from Gaara's stomach. It tore through her bicep and came directly at her. After waking up from her daze, Samui leapt over the claw of sand and hurled several explosive tags in Gaara's direction. Samui turned to see Gaara emerge from the claw of sand, but the true Gaara was nowhere to be found. She sliced through another wave of sand that was coming her way with all her strength as her explosive tags detonated on the replica Gaara. She would have been struck if she hadn't infused her sword with lightning chakra. As they descended, Samui looked up to see that Gaara had suspended her previous attacks in midair and was now floating on a cloud of sand. Sand shaped like enormous shapes encircled her. The priceless claw of sand was descending gradually to the earth. Then everything was different. Her entire world went black. Around Gaara, every attack that had come before seemed to combine into one. Yugito's gaze grew wide at the enormous dome Gaara had made. The dome he'd made in midair, adorned with strange blue patterns. Naruto's voice said, "It's over. She's in Gaara's world now. The walls she might lean against, the ground she stands on, the ceiling she sees, everything is his in there. He's a Jinchuriki. I knew of him, but I didn't think he would be this good at controlling the Biju's chakra. And I think you are one, as well, a Jinchuriki." Yugito gave him a pointed stare. Naruto gave her a simple smile. "You too, right? I can sense a lot of chakra in you. Like, an amount only someone like a Jinchuriki can have." The blonde Junin gave a nod of her head and then focused on Gaara's failing dome technique. Samui fell to the ground unharmed, saying, "Don't underestimate my student, though. She's a master of electricity." Gazing down at her with his eyes narrowed in a sort of respect, Gaara remained suspended in midair. "Not bad, Kumo Shinobi. But can you?" Panting, Samui interrupted him, raising a hand. I used too much chakra." She had practically let go of her lightning infused chakra in order to burst through the dome. However, that dome was unique. She needed to use more than she had planned in order to make a hole large enough for her to escape through. With a nod of his hand, the Shukaku Jinchuriki undid all the subterranean moves he had prepared for her. He vanished and resurfaced next to Naruto, who was once more standing by Hinata's side. Hinata, utterly mesmerized by the recently concluded battle. Hinata stumbled, Anyo. That was great, Gaara-kun. He was surprised to hear her soft voice, but he could clearly hear her. Oh, he didn't know what to say to this weird girl. "Thank you, Hyuga Hinata-san." After giving the two a smile, Naruto turned to see Yugito trying to wake up Karui and Omoi. "I believe we won that little bet, didn't we?" Yugito let out a sigh at her two unconscious subordinates, who remained motionless. Useless. She stood up from her squat and fixed her gaze on a grinning Naruto. "Not really." You said my team wouldn't even scratch Gaara. I believe Samui did hit him with that lightning attack underground? Gaara gave me a sidelong, embarrassed look. I concur, she did. Naruto gave Gaara a shocked look. Then he shrugged and said, wow, really? Blasted. Well, I guess no one wins, then. Because your team didn't defeat Gaara. Samui and the Nekomata Jinchuriki both picked up Omoi and Karui, shaking their heads. It was a silly bet, anyway. Naruto gave a snort. Shay, you obviously have never tasted ramen before. Whatever you say, Naruto. Yugito gave Samui a nod, signaling that it was time for them to return to their makeshift apartment. Naruto turned to face Gaara and Hinata as they departed. So, Hinata, what you wanted to talk about? He was not feeling well. It is evident that his meetings in Konoha were not very successful. Even though she was aware that their village desired to form an alliance with Konoha, she was aware that Leaf and Cloud's relationship wasn't without its challenges. The two guards who never left the Raikage's side, Darui and Shi, occasionally cast glances back. Samui realized why. It seems that Konoha struck a deal with the Raikage, and now the group that had been observing them in Konoha would be accompanying them back to Kumo. Shi, Darui, and the Raikage were walking behind Yugito. She could see Omoi and Karui moving left and right. Konoha's group trailed along behind them, chatting. Every now and then, the blonde Shunin turned to look after them. She was a skilled shinobi, able to sense other ninjas with ease and speed, but she couldn't figure out why she couldn't sense their captain, the blonde who had defeated Yugito approximately a week prior, or the child she had battled a few days prior. She was actually annoyed by it. She was also defeated. She hardly ever lost a spar. She would only be challenged by Yugito and Killer Bee, both of whom were enormously powerful. This Gaara kid didn't seem like much, save perhaps, occasionally, a psychotic killer. Still, he was unquestionably stronger than her. Was everyone else on their team as good as them, she wondered? She knew everything about them. A skilled Kubitsu user named Sabaku no Konkaru. Kumo was aware that he could currently only command 2 puppets. It goes without saying that Sabaku no Tamari was a wind user, her ardent supporter. However, she was powerful, possibly more so than her brother Konkaru. They all knew that Sabaku no Gaara was a Jinchuriki. Actually, they knew nothing about Kinuto Dosu other than his name. Aside from his former Sound.Nin status and his chakra affinity, they knew nothing. After that was Uzumaki Naruto, their leader. Samui peered out the corner of her eye at the other blonde. Before that, Samui was sincere. He's a definite wildcard. If his subordinate can defeat someone like me, she said. In Kumo, she was regarded as a prodigy. So how strong is the captain? She abruptly stopped and said, hold up. Samui saw that Yugito had also stiffened up. The Raikage had little desire to go sightseeing. Hurry up, already, I'm cranky at the moment. Yugito exclaimed, we've got company, big company, and she concurred. This chakra presence is massive, and it's not even trying to hide itself. She went on. And, it's coming this way. A turned to face the Konoha team and said, who's stupid enough to attack a cage? He glared at Naruto, who shook his head and asked, are these shinobi from Konoha? Calmly, Naruto replied, no, I've already sent a few bunchen ahead. They're coming from the opposite direction. One of them has a Sharingan, the other looks like a shark. She said, startled, Uchiha Itachi and Hoshigaki Kisame. Those are 2 big names, boss, he said, not asking Naruto how he learned. Gaara asked, orders, Uzumaki. Taiko? After making the best assessment of the situation in front of him, Naruto focused on the Raikage, who was frantically ordering all of his subordinates to take care of these 2 missing nin as soon as possible. He was eager to get home. He stated, we protect Raikage, Sama, with the best of our abilities. When Samui heard that, she appeared shocked, and the other members of the team exhibited similar reactions. Darui fixed the Konoha group with his lazy eye. You don't understand. They're after Ni Yugito and Sabaku no Gaara. Yugito groaned. She hadn't revealed to the others that Naruto was a Jinchuriki as well. She exhaled, as anxious as it was possible to be, they're here. A tall man who appeared to be half fish uttered the words, Oi, Itachi-san. Is this our lucky day or what? While he hefted his sword on his right shoulder. I believe I spy, with my little eye, 3 little, Jinchuriki. They had materialized before Darui, Shi, and the Raikage. Behind the Raikage was Naruto and the others. 3? The Raikage asked once more. Then I assume their captain is the other Jinchuriki. Samui, Omoi, and Karui turned to face Naruto, who merely shrugged, looking shocked. With his Sharingan eyes fixed on each of them, Uchiha Itachi began, "I do not want to kill you all. But I will not hesitate to do so if you don't do as we say." The Raikage looked at Itachi and Kisame and let out a loud laugh. "Lucky, indeed. I'm having a bad day." The cage exclaimed as electricity engulfed him, making him prepared for battle. Their leader, collapsed to the ground, the chakra surrounding him disappearing, and she, as well as the typically slack and reticent Darui, appeared utterly stunned. He was not conscious. Without a doubt, out cold. Darui let out a quick, shit, as she grabbed the cage and leapt backward. Now, she was by himself in front of the two formidable criminals. What did you do?" The two sharks laughed for a short while. "I didn't expect you to do that, Itachi-san. I anticipated difficulties if I hadn't," Itachi muttered, experiencing a mild afterglow from utilizing the Tsukiyomi. With his teeth out, Kisame attacked the group in front of him. A tremendous amount of killer intent permeated the air as they exclaimed, "Ha ha ha. Your most powerful guy just got downed in. Second, how about you guys all?" He was interrupted by Itachi, which also prevented the killer intent from increasing. "Kisame. We're only here to take the Jinchuriki." The Mist Shinobi growled, his desire for a kill slightly waning. He asked in jest, "Which one?" But Itachi took him seriously. With his gaze fixed on the Konoha group, Itachi uttered, "Our orders are for only Uzumaki Naruto. As soon as he heard that, he knew exactly what to do. This was Akatsuki, the group that was after the Kyuubi inside of him. "All of you leave, Yugito-san, take all of your shinobi with you and get back to Konoha. I'll hold them off." It was not the moment for humor. These were the real deal, these guys. Not a chance. Naruto became more excited as Gaara moved to stand beside him. The redhead smiled, a little uncertainly, "I will not let them take you, Uzumaki, Taiko. They'll have to go through me." Itachi became even more suspicious of the two Jinchuriki after noticing something strange about them, Naruto's eyes, which resembled toads. That seems a bit unlikely. The missing nin didn't think a child as young as Naruto could be proficient in senjutsu, but he did the shorizu once more to be safe. Gazing into the future for a few minutes, he saw nothing. Incredible. Itachi tried to locate any approaching reinforcements with every sense he possessed, but none did. All he could detect were the 3 shadow clones that Naruto had dispatched to Konoha in order to gather more power. In 5 to 7 minutes, he would undoubtedly pass out if his shorizu revealed darkness. He growled, "This isn't acceptable, Tsukiyomi." Itachi felt Kisame's head whipping. "Itachi, what are you?" With that, Gaara and Naruto both collapsed to the ground, rendered unconscious. After that, Itachi's vertigo was so severe that he had to hold his head with his right hand right away. Naruto's shadow clones never made it to Konoha because, now that he was unconscious, they are stronger than you think, Kisame. They had to be dealt with. Gazing at the remaining, terrified shinobi in front of him, Kisame began, "Man," he said nonchalantly, taking pleasure in the tense atmosphere, "I didn't know you could use the technique on 2 people at the same time." The former shinobi from Konoha was all right again. He turned back to the group in front of them, the fish-like man saying, "There's a lot you don't know about me, Kisame." As soon as Naruto and Gaara fell, Dosu, Kankuro, and Temari leapt in front of them. Now Yugito was concerned. Although Raikage was undoubtedly the strongest among them, he was treated as such. She wasn't sure why, but she was aware that Naruto wasn't to be taken lightly. And he was eliminated from the game in the same manner as the Kumo captain. After settling the Raikage against a tree, Darui said, "I'll just go out on a limb and say you've used quite some of your chakra already. Yugito, we are the strongest present. We're all Junin, we can deal with these 2. However, the Neko Jinchuriki wasn't entirely certain of that. She didn't even have as much chakra as that Kisame person. Itachi said, "Leave. Overestimating your own ability is something a genin would do. I expect none of that of Junin like yourself." But Kisame was planning something else. "Let me just rip all of them apart, Itachi." After giving his comrade some thought, Itachi turned to face his target, the 3 Konoha nin in front of him, and the Kumo nin behind them. The battle that would ensue might make it simpler for him to simply kidnap Naruto. "Do as you like." And then the whole place burst into water. There was water all around. With big wave explosion just used, Kisame was eager to rip his opponents to pieces, but Itachi was nowhere in sight. He was swimming in his technique, making the Konoha and Kumo.nin realize they had nowhere to run and holding their breath. With a menacing smirk, Kisame prepared to merge with Samahata. That is, until something unexpected happened to his water dome, or rather, something unexpected happened inside his water dome. Something leapt into the picture. Kisame thought, gritting his teeth in frustration, Gamma Bunta. He gave a short, unsure laugh, shaking off his irritation at the summoning's abrupt appearance in front of him. He exclaimed, gazing at the enormous toad that was floating in front of him, Jiraiya. Sama, I presume. This renders my water dome ineffective. Gamma Bunta is too powerful for any of my sharks, even though I can breathe here and summon sharks as much as I want. Jiraiya had already set Naruto and Gaara down on the ground outside the dome, with the rest of Naruto's team nearby. Kankuro questioned, How did you get here so quick? Itachi, who was observing Kisame's battle from a distance, was also curious to know that. Though he had sensed Jiraiya's appearance moments earlier, he had not sensed him approaching them at all. Jiraiya angrily said, I was summoned. Plus, he was deep in productive research. Looking at the enormous toad inside the water dome and the Kumo.nin, who were still fighting to escape, Tamari asked again, summoned. It seems that Jiraiya did nothing at all to help them either. On the other hand, he managed to slam the Konoha.nin from the water sphere. Perhaps slamming Kumo.nin isn't the best idea. He grimaced as he checked Naruto's vital signs and said, I made a contract with Naruto. Should a need arise, we can summon each other with a scroll. A need like Akatsuki is acceptable, I guess. He was still apprehensive about being torn from his ideal spot at the bathing houses. With a burst of Kisame's water technique, the shark-like man collapsed to the floor beside Itachi. It didn't matter that he didn't know if the Uchiha had arrived later or was already standing there. But Itachi was completely dry. Between the two Akatsuki members and the others, Jiraiya's summons came to rest. The Kumo.nin touched down near the Konoha shinobi, Darui carrying the raikage. Kisame growled a little and adjusted the sword on his back. Such a shame, I didn't expect you here, Jiraiya. Sama. The Toad Sage turned away from Gaara and Naruto and stared at Itachi and Kisame, saying, yeah, that makes two of us. You realize you both have to flee now, right? I'm not really in the mood for a complicated battle. Complicated, as in needing to fend off two formidable shinobi while defending all these greenhorns surrounding him. Itachi had already turned his back on them all and said, Kisame, he is right. With Jiraiya Sama's presence here, it's best to retreat. The former Mist.nin looked Jiraiya in the eye and knew he was a formidable foe. Quite correct, he is one I would rather not face. For shinobi, power was paramount. A shinobi could defeat another shinobi, but then that second shinobi could lose to a third. It's all about who gets what. Jiraiya was too strong for Itachi to defeat Orochimaru. Perhaps Orochimaru could defeat Jiraiya, but once Jiraiya put in his best effort, Orochimaru would most likely lose. As the two missing nin departed, Jiraiya turned to the remaining conscious ninja in his immediate vicinity. Let's get them back to Konoha. They've been hit by the Tsukiyomi. Only one person I know can fix this. I can't believe this, Raikage. Sama was, just like that, what the hell happened? Seated outside the hospital, Omoi was dumbfounded, and Karui was seated beside him. Jiraiya had gone directly to the Hokage Tower, and Samui, Yugito, Shi, and Darui had followed at her heels. Currently, Naruto, Gaara, and the Raikage were in the hospital. Most likely, Naruto's team was inside. Karui was equally depressed as Omoi, feeling worthless. They were two S-ranked criminals, Omoi. We didn't even know anything about them and they rushed us immediately. We were screwed even with Shi, Darui and Yugito. No kidding, complained Omoi. And those other Konoha.nin couldn't do anything either. I've heard they need to get a legendary medic back to Konoha or something. Hey, will he be alright? The woman with red hair gave a loud sneer. A guy like Raikage, are you serious? He's gonna be fine, you idiot. Omoi gave a small pout. We need to get stronger, Karui. A lot stronger. I mean, a genin handed us both our asses. He exclaimed, balling his fists. And then this feeling of being completely useless. I don't want it. Karui nodded, but she still accepted. We will pay her. The silence they were in was broken abruptly by Yugito, and the third Hokage arched an eyebrow. There were a few issues with getting Tsunade to Konoha. Finding her wouldn't be too hard, but convincing her to come back to the Leaf. A little bit impossible, maybe. I take it that Tsunade is the one who gambles. She wagers in Kumo. She looked away a little. Alongside me, sometimes. She always loses and I know of her great debts. This is important. It's about rakeage. Sama, Kumo will pay her debts if she can heal our rakeage. She hung his head against the knuckles of his right hand, and Darui shook his head. Although everything you say is probably true, he paused for a moment. Yugito's suggestion might be the only one, but true, and your way of persuasion might work. I think we should send a Konoha squad after her and persuade her, normally first. He didn't want to say it aloud. Konoha would also contribute if that came to that. Given that her debts were already staggering 3 years prior, he wondered how much more she owed now. Jiraiya said, I'll go. I know how to find her. Sasuke had learned that Naruto and a member of his squad were hospitalized after their squad returned from a botched mission. Now he and Sakura were traveling to the hospital, Kakashi following behind. They would be training today, having returned from their own mission a day earlier, but first things first. They assumed Sai had returned home. The well-known copy ninja appeared to be reading his book, but his thoughts were not on it. To believe that Hoshigaki Kisame and Uchiha Itachi would attack them. Better that Sasuke not find out. Upon entering the waiting area, they noticed that 2 Kumo shinobi were also there, appearing extremely upset. With a head tilt, Kakashi made the decision to go with them and maybe inquire about what had transpired outside. You guys go on ahead, I'll wait here for a bit. His 2 students exchanged a quizzical look before shrugging and moving toward Naruto's location. The presence of additional guests in the room didn't surprise Naruto's 2 former teammates. Gaara's bed was beside Naruto's, and Temari was sitting by it. Kankuro and Dosu were leaning against the wall. The 2 hospital patients appeared to be breathing regularly. Sakura stuttered out, She bowed briefly before entering the room and making her way to Naruto's bed. Excuse me. Sasuke trailed behind Sakura without saying anything to the others. Sakura could not help but scowl at his feeble form. She was always reminded of Naruto's exuberance and strong. It broke her heart to see him like this. From the corner of her eye, she noticed the Uchiha move and asked, Sasuke-kun. What happened? Kankuro gave Uchiha a bored look as he questioned. We were attacked by 2 nuke.nin, Uchiha Itachi and Hoshigaki Kisame. Whistling to himself, Kakashi had just received a detailed account from Karui and Omoi in the waiting area. He heard a commotion coming from the room where Naruto was supposed to be, so he sighed and closed his book. Tell me more. Where is he now? What did he say? When Kakashi witnessed Sasuke snatching Kankuro by his suit, he suppressed a sigh. Do puppeteers dress in such suits? Sasuke, let him go. The others were all shocked to see the copy.nin standing there since they hadn't even sensed his entrance. The Avenger had released Kankuro and stomped toward Kakashi with an angry expression, saying, Kakashi. It was Itachi. Do you know anything about this? You knew about this, didn't you? Calm down, Sasuke. He didn't even slightly calm down before exclaiming, where is he? Kakashi responded, sensing Sasuke wouldn't back down, he's nowhere close. He's the one who did this to Naruto and Gaara, and also the Raikage. Sasuke was clenching his fists and gritting his teeth when he heard the sounds of muscles stretching and bones cracking. He vanquished a cage and made 2 brutes, among them a few Junin, retreat to Konoha. How strong are you, Itachi, damn you. After a few days, somewhere else. His feet felt good under the water's cooling effect. When he had time off from traveling, he always looked for some kind of lake. For 2 days, they had not stopped to eat, drink, or even sleep. They had been constantly on the move. The Kumo.nin accompanying him were determined to locate Tsunade as soon as possible. Jiraiya. Sama. With a quick look over his shoulder, the hermit toad noticed Samui getting closer to him. Yugito wanted me to let you know we're ready to move again. The elderly man gave a nod. The truth was that although he was more than eager to move again, the others really weren't. We'll wait for another 10 minutes before we leave, my feet are really comfortable at the moment. Although their desire to save their master was admirable, it's not really admirable to forget about yourself. He was currently traveling with Yugito, Samui, and, somewhat unexpectedly, Kakashi. Samui shrugged and made the decision to give it a shot after witnessing Jiraiya throw his feet into the lake. Jiraiya. Sama, do you think Tsunade Sama will come with us? For money? I don't know. Paying off her debts might do the trick, since it'll mean she'll be allowed to gamble everywhere again. Daikamedachi. Watching the boulder finally receive a scratch from Temari's wind blast, Kankuro whistled. You're getting better. His elder sister growled at the enormous chunk of rock in front of her. Not good enough. We need to make sure they can rely on us. What are you doing lazing about, Kankuro? The puppeteer was currently propped up against a tree. Hey, you think I'm taking a break? Tamari asked, observing as her brother turned to face the tree he was sitting against. Unable to keep her mouth shut, she just stared. 3 puppets were engaged in a kenjutsu fight across quite a distance. Blindly. As his puppets came to a stop, Kankuro sighed. Yeah. It's really difficult. 3 puppets is my limit, and these are still wooden. I'm making metal ones at the moment, more durable, you know. But controlling those requires even greater strength. But momentum plays a huge part in it, thankfully. He was patted on the head by the blonde, who said, impressive, lazy little brother. Want to see if they can withstand the Daikamaitachi? Kankuro mocked Temari's smile. His sister would ask that question far too frequently for his liking. You know wind chakra is the most brutal force out of all the elements, right? Keep that crazy fan of yours away from my puppets. It's not like I like to repeat myself, Tamari. You're boring me, Tamari said, preparing her fan once more to hit the boulder and sending another strong gust in its direction. Watching the boulder finally crack completely, Kankuro deadpanned, thank the heavens for that. They didn't feel compelled to express their concerns about Gaara and Naruto. They both got it. The 3rd Hokage called him to arrange a meeting with a potential new teammate. It seems that Naruto ranked him 3rd in command, following Gaara and himself. Considering how insanely powerful both Naruto and Gaara were, he was pretty proud of himself at that point. Kinyuta Dosu. Not that he was a slouch either. He could finally control the devices under his bandages, and his control over sound was improving. He would have regretted being a sound shinobi to Orochimaru. I believe you are somewhat familiar with Tayuya. Daring to look at the girl sitting in the other chair in the Hokage's office, Dosu did. Though he didn't like the glare he was getting, he was accustomed to it because all sound.nin had that specific glare. I know of her, though I cannot recall having traded words with one another. The red-haired girl frowned suddenly, and he decided he didn't like that either. I see, for the next few weeks, Tayuya will be joining your team on missions within the village. Should your team receive outside missions, she won't be part of the team. Understood. I want you to show her around the village. She'll be living in the same apartment complex you are residing, the apartment next to yours is hers. I'm counting on you, Dosu-san. He turned to face Tayuya and said, as you wish, Hokage-sama. Follow me, then. The fire leader chose to keep an eye on things through his viewing orb after watching the 2 of them leave. Dosu has demonstrated his allegiance to Naruto, but Tayuya has only demonstrated that she is not one of Orochimaru's brainwashed slaves. It will require some viewing. Tayuya asked Dosu, so you've also worked for Orochimaru? Right away. I've never seen you before. Dosu began, I was of rank genin, you were one of the 5. I wonder how they've come to trust you like this, as you were one of Orochimaru's more trusted guards. Tayuya gave him a smile. His lack of reaction made her roll her eyes and say, hey, you talk funny, mummy. They've done a shitload of interrogation techniques on me. And I may have been one of the 5, that was only because I survived one the more riskier of Orochimaru's cursed seals. I was bound to that snake and knew I could do nothing to fight it. The cursed seal would have hurt me even more had I resisted. Dosu led the way to the apartment complex without turning around. I'll assume you possess no other clothes than what you're wearing now. You assume wrong, mummy. Dosu was growing a little irritated with the nickname. My name is Kinyuta Dosu. It'd be wise to refrain to me as such, Tayuya. Tayuya shifted the cap on top of her head slightly and said, whatever. That Hokage told me my apartment already had a bunch of stuff for me, including several sets of clothes. So what kind of team do we have? Who's the boss? Dosu went into his apartment building. Our team is one of genin. Our leader is Chunin, though I'm fairly sure he's ranked above. Tayuya bit out, Chunin. Our leader is a fucking Chunin. So I can kick his ass, huh? A pretty silly presumption, Dosu retorted. Our leader single-handedly and very easily killed Kagaya Kimimaro and made Yukushi Kabuto retreat. I saw it happen in front of me. That's what stopped Tayuya from walking. Now, Dosu turned to face the surprised girl, grinning. He also realized that, despite everyone gradually catching up to her, Tayuya was most likely the same height as Tamari, the tallest member of the team. Wait, this Chunin faced both Kimimaro and Kabuto and was actually winning. Fuck you, I ain't retarded, mummy. No way am I falling for such a far-fetched story. He shrugged, and Dosu went on. Actually, he faced Kimimaro while he was in his highest cursed seal state, on his own and defeated him soundly. In fact, Taiko hadn't even received a single scratch. Kabuto merely fled after seeing the result of that fight. Tayuya gave a snort. No shit. Dosu grinned more. Our captain is also the one that disrupted your Shishi engine. Though the redhead was hard to persuade, she was gradually beginning to believe it. I suppose I should thank him for that one. If what you say is actually true, it takes a crapload of chakra to perform Shishi engine. Really, Taiko can do it on his own, though. Quote comma dot. You're just full of shit, aren't you? A 2.5 week times KIP. This the kid. Tsunade was in disbelief that she was back in Konoha. When Jiraiya and his strange team of Konoha and Kumo shinobi discovered her in Waterfall, she was a little taken aback by the information they had given her. Orochimaru, an old teammate, was killed following an unsuccessful attempt to do Konoha in. A week or so later, a pipsqueak by the name of Uchiha Itachi defeated 2 Jinchuriki in a cage in a single battle. The Raikage she knew wasn't someone to be taken lightly, so that kid had to be pretty good, too. She had heard from Jiraiya about Uzumaki Naruto and the young child of Kushina and Minato. The Jinchuriki Kyuubi, he was apparently a real prodigy. As she began treating him, the renowned doctor muttered, he looks alright, I guess. The only people there were Jiraiya, Hiruzen, and Kakashi, who observed Tsunade working on both Naruto and Gaara. When she was finished, she remarked, I guess they'll wake up in a few hours. The Raikage awoke immediately, but that's because the stronger the shinobi, the faster he or she will. UHNN. 2 groans interrupted her, and she quickly turned her back on the Hokage and the others to witness both Jinchuriki waking up. For a brief moment, she was in awe, but then she made a decision. I guess Jinchuriki are an exception as well. Gaara just stared around the room, unable to comprehend why he was lying in a hospital bed, while Naruto managed to ask, Hey, Kakashi, sensei. Kakashi grinned at them and said, Naruto, Gaara, you're okay. Try and get some sleep, we'll fill you in on the details tomorrow. It's good to see you two awake again. So they just made the decision to do that. The third was lying in bed in the hospital, watching the 2 Jinchuriki sleep soundly. Though he was awake and comforting his own shinobi, the Raikage remained in the same state, still resting in a hospital bed. Hawk messengers had already been dispatched to Kumo to inform their village that their leader was doing well. Gazing at his motionless figure, Hiruzen thought, you've grown very strong, Naruto-kun. Very few would have a chance against Uchiha Itachi, even if I had sent an Anbu squad or a Junin squad to accompany the Raikage and his entourage. The elderly man was required to sign numerous documents, as the hospitalization of their leader had greatly infuriated Kumo's council. In addition, he was occupied with debriefings involving Jiraiya, Naruto's group, and the Kumo.nin. Naruto, Gaara, and the Lightning Leader had all been struck by the Tsukiyomi. He was already aware of the experiences the Raikage had. 72 hours of torture. But what was the ultimate genjutsu faced by the 2 Jinchuriki who came before him? Oh, old man. Hiruzen's gaze gradually shifted to Naruto as he awoke. That's pretty impressive, an hour and a half after the Raikage's true awakening. He turned his chair towards Naruto and clasped his hands together. Good afternoon, Naruto-kun. I assume you had a good night's rest. The blonde flexed his arms and exclaimed, Po. More than just good, I feel great. He gave the fire leader a hard look. What happened to us, old man? I will be asking you the same question. Naruto discovered Temari, Kenkiro, and Dosu in the room he was staying in the following morning. Compared to Gaara, who had likely slept in whenever he could since he could remember sleeping, he had woken up earlier. So, care to fill me in what happened after I got knocked down? Naturally, everyone had said how relieved they were to see them all looking so good that morning. Kenkiro moved to a small stool between Naruto and Gaara's beds and said, You summoned Jiraiya. He chased them away. On one side of Naruto's bed, Temari was sitting, and Dosu was leaning against the wall. That guy doesn't look it at all, but with the way those two retreated, I'll assume he's as strong as they come. Naruto pointed out, gazing at Kenkiro, Jiraiya's strong. I was just able to summon him too, or rather, my Kage Bunshin was. When Itachi used that genjutsu on me, my Bunshin all dispelled one by one. My last one made the hand seals and poured the chakra on the summoning scroll just in time. Temari asked, I still don't understand how you can summon Jiraiya, Taiko, in an attempt to get an answer. It's kind of a last resort. Those two Nukenin are part of an organization who are after the Biju sealed in us. I'm strong and I've pushed Gaara to catch up to me. But we're not invincible. We can always land in some kind of sticky situation. In that case, I can summon Jiraiya. It's a blood summoning scroll. He can summon me, I can summon him. Wherever we are. Dosu added, that's good to know. Should we receive a high-rank mission in where we are entrapped by any kind of means, we'll always have something to fall back on. With a snort, Tamari said, Che. That's only if Taiko's around, Dosu. The former Odo.nin flashed Tamari the Hiraishin Kunai Naruto had given them all, saying, ah, but then. We also have these. That had to make the blonde woman smile. Yeah, you're right, fine. The group's puppeteer exclaimed, I like it. It'll make me perform more confidently on missions. Not that I need more confidence. The group turned to hear Gaara's awakening sounds. You're making too much noise. Tamari embraced the redhead, who couldn't help but smile. With a distinct tone of relief in his voice, Kankuro laughed. Good to have you back in the land of the living, little brother. Naruto's team was fully operational 2 days later. The blonde was curious about the state of affairs among her peers, particularly his former squad. They didn't have time to visit the hospital because, it seems, they had a lot of C-rank missions this week. That was just too awful. For now, they were just hanging around the Suna trio's apartment. In actuality, Naruto was right next door. Naruto had been informing the Hokage of all the events surrounding the Kisame and Itachi incident. He purposefully revealed to everyone what Itachi had been up to during the Tsukiyomi. Later on, he discovered that Gaara had been having the same problem. An exchange with Itachi. For 48 hours. Apparently, the Tsukiyomi caused too much mental strain for the recipient, so regardless of whether it was harmful or not, the victim would still pass out. Additionally, the conversation was quite fascinating. He gained a great deal of knowledge about Konoha's past during the Tsukiyomi. Dosu's voice nudged him out of his reverie. Taiko, perhaps now would be a good time to welcome our new member in our midst. She's my neighbor. She lives just a few doors away, Gaara said to his siblings. Naruto questioned, Tayuya, right? And was met with a single nod. What do you think of her, Dosu? It's hard to say. She's a difficult person who likes to curse. It is part of her nature. I can't easily see through her, but I believe she's at least an honest person. You'll see when you meet with her. Then we'll meet tomorrow, as scheduled. Hokage. Sama also told me our mission is still on and our new departure date is in 3 days. Let's prepare ourselves a bit better than last time, huh? Hatake Kakashi bowed before his leader and said, Team 7 returning from 2 C-ranked missions. Mission success. This time, Hiruzen had no paperwork to worry about and was contentedly puffing on his pipe. Good to see you back in Konoha. I assume there was not too much trouble. Team 7 as a whole shook their heads. Apart from occasional minor injuries, everything is fine, Kakashi shrugged. It was clear to Kakashi that the third day would be devoted to team building activities and the mission reports of the 2 most recent C ranks. Good. Then I'll have you and your team rest up for 2 days. Report to me in 4 days, Kakashi. Dismissed. Kakashi had already turned away when the pinkhead of the team asked, Anyo, Hokage, Sama. Do you have any news on Naruto? However, the Junin was intrigued by that as well and made another turn around. Ah yes, about that, I'm sure you'll be relieved to learn of his release from the hospital 3 days ago. I, however, have a request. He has a team meeting today which could very well be lasting until evening. Perhaps you'd be able to meet with him tonight, or tomorrow. As he smiled back, the third observed that Sakura's smile was contagious. This news appeared to satisfy Sasuke as well as Kakashi, albeit quietly. Though there's a good chance Sasuke was content for other reasons. In order for him to question Naruto about Itachi, Sakura exclaimed, Hi, Hokage. Sama. Before bowing and leaving the office. After her, Sasuke and Sai went, but Kakashi lingered for a while. He's alright, then. The professor of shinobi nodded. Every shinobi needs to go through defeat to become stronger. I think Naruto has just gotten a lot stronger, Kakashi. As he ascended the stairs on the outside wall towards his apartment, Naruto carried 2 large bags in his hands. 2 shadow clones trailed him, each toting 2 large sacks. Good morning, Taiko. Tamari was hanging laundry on the balcony next to him when the 3 Narutos turned to face her. Up early, huh? Naruto wanted to scratch the back of his head, but the bags prevented him from doing so. Yeah, Ran out of supplies. I was really hungry yesterday. The blonde woman deadpanned, let me guess, while hanging one of Kenkuro's suits. All of it is ramen. With a swift protest, the Jinchuriki opened his mouth. He turned to face his shadow clones and trailed off, no. I have one bag of. He pouted a little and said, damn it. Yeah, all you see right now is ramen. He yelled at his cage Bunshin, where's NR.3? A third shadow clone followed that question, heading up the exterior stairs. He was also toting 2 large grocery shopping bags, saying, here I am, Yanag. Naruto in real life shook his head. He shouted to Temari, one of his bags has some milk in it. With haste. Temari smirked at her fellow blonde, yeah, 1 carton of milk and the rest of the bag is still ramen. One person snorted, of course, you mustn't ever run out of ramen. He heard his 3 shadow clones chorus, listen to the wise man. Upon seeing the display on Naruto's balcony, Temari shook her head. As she was finishing the laundry, she muttered, and to think this guy knocked down Baki in 1 second. After that, she muttered, next time Kenkuro's doing this crap job. While his cage Bunshin were already entering his apartment, Naruto yelled to Temari, yo, tell the others I'll be a bit later at our training field. I've got someone to meet before that. Temari scowled at him, won't that be making a bad impression on our newest member, Taiko? Nah, I don't think less of Kakashi, sensei. Man, I hope she shows up today. She did yesterday and the day before that, so. She must really love it. Perched atop a building, Naruto had a view of the more shaded area of Konoha. He wasn't by himself. He was waiting for Tsunade and Shizune to arrive, making 2 of his shadow clones go with him. After all, if he was alone, he would get bored. Given that Tsunade was debt-free, it seemed that she and her assistant would only be visiting Konoha for a short while in order to gamble. One clone said at random, you know, we should have more blood summonings with us, don't you think? The other clone said, Che. Who do you wanna summon, Kiba? The first clone shot back, are you crazy? Akamaru would be a better choice. Maybe we should sign a blood scroll with the old man. While the 2 clones carried on their conversation, the real Naruto was simply observing the streets below. Haha, yeah, and then summon him straight into the bathhouses. Holy crap, that would be the prank of a lifetime. But I think the old man wouldn't sign it, he's too important to be summoned away from Konoha all of a sudden. I mean, look at Jiraiya, he's never really busy. How about Kakashi? Sensei. Nah, he's watching over Sakura, Chan and the bastard during missions. We can't just drag him away from that. Huh, they both began to think about it. A finger was placed to his chin by the real Naruto. He could already see the 2 walking off in the distance. How about Tsunade or that assistant of hers? They're free, not working for Konoha. And they're undoubtedly strong, too. Stay here, you 2, I'm gonna meet with her. He leapt to the ground and landed squarely in front of Shizune and Tsunade. His unexpected landing made the second jump a little. Naruto presented them with a formal bow. Tsunade. Sama, Shizune.san. I thank you for your care. Tsunade said, staring at the blonde in front of her indifferently, oh, that's the brat we helped the other day. You're welcome. Next time don't go fighting S-rank Nukenin, kid. The blonde gave her a smile as he lifted his head. Can't make promises about that one, since they're kinda after me. Naturally, Tsunade became aware of Akatsuki after moving to Konoha recently, a group that searches for every Jinchuriki. In any case, she didn't give a damn. Then you should run away next time. You know the odds of surviving against someone like Uchiha Itachi, for a kid like you, right? Naruto couldn't help but chuckle. Hey, you're talking to me about odds, lady. He extended his hand and said, I'm Uzumaki Naruto. After a brief moment, Tsunade and Shizune shook his hand. I'll take it you have something to say, or ask us. With a slight tilt of his head, Naruto took in the details of the 2 women in front of him and said, a request. These 2 seemed to be extremely valuable individuals to him in the future. For the moment, he was unable to see how. Here. Tsunade eyed the 3 identical looking pills that Naruto was holding in his right hand. What's that? Naruto looked at the pills he was holding and said, a special pill. He was immediately compelled to take one. They were created by Haruno Sakura, his former teammate, in the future, during a major war. It was created especially for Jinchuriki. However, that did not imply that it would be useless for regular shinobi. Again, Tsunade asked, special. What's it do? Naruto surveyed his surroundings. Take one and see if you can find out. I have more of these, but I can't tell you what they do in the middle of these streets. I have a mission in 2 days, so I'll be gone for a week or so. I've heard you'll be leaving Konoha too. He went on after seeing Tsunade nod. Shizune remained mostly silent, fixating on the peculiar blonde. In all honesty, it still needed to be developed. The truth is, the after effects of the pill require a certain medic jutsu only you have. Well, if you're curious, you can find me in Konoha. I'll gladly tell you more. She was curious, though, so she said, "Hey, mysterious, aren't you?" As she took one of the pills, she couldn't help but notice Naruto's smile. "I don't really sense any ill intent from you, boy. Although you do remind me of a fox." Naruto grinned. "Hey, I guess it comes with the title, EY. Then he closed his eyes and bowed once more. "Thank you, Tsunade-sama. I hope we will see each other again." As she passed Naruto, the first Hokage's granddaughter said, "Maybe we will." "It was nice to meet you, Naruto-kun." After opening his eyes, Naruto turned to face Shizune. "Yeah, it was very nice to meet you too, Shizune-san. Perhaps we'll have a more elaborate conversation next time." They'll undoubtedly have. Naruto approached Tsunade and Shizune and then proceeded cautiously to the location of his team's regular training. Those two appealed to him. Both Tsunade and Shizune were relatively simple to read. They were very direct and didn't hide too much. That kind of person was what he liked. He sent a couple of Fuin Bunshin ahead to see what his team was up to at the moment, and then he tiptoed into a tree. Dosu and Gaara were conversing with Tayuya. Kankuro and Tamari were conversing with one another. Assuming he understood correctly, the topic of discussion was laundry duty. This group was his squad. Second in command Sabaku no Gaara had some control over his Biju, and Naruto was confident that Gaara could now take on shinobi of the Junin rank. Tamari Sabaku was becoming proficient with her Kuchiyos, weasels. She was only able to call forth a medium-sized weasel thus far. However, that person, Kamatari, had a mastery over wind chakra. As he himself had said, Sabaku no Kankuro was becoming an expert in Kugutsu very quickly. When Naruto first met him, he believed he was an expert already. This means that Kinato Dosu could turn your own noises against you. Any sound wave surrounding him could be altered by him to sound completely different. When he first attempted it on Naruto, the latter believed it to be a genjutsu, but it was all genuine. And to Yuya, this new girl, a specialist in genjutsu. Though Azuki Yugo had been lending him a hand lately with his genjutsu, he was still extremely cautious with that lethal skill. Though, in general, his shinobi outfit warned him against using genjutsu, and in an emergency, his stronger bond with his Biju could pull him through. Genjutsu is just too cunning. As demonstrated against Itachi, it could only take a second. And anyway, where was the Kyuubi that was shaking him during the Tsukiyomi? Tsukiyomi seems to be one of those genjutsu that is just too strong. He must discuss it with Kyuubi, should that demon feel inclined to do so. Perhaps you wish to try and survive against my newest jutsu, then. Bring it, you tiny brat. As he and Tayuya prepared to begin a sparring match, Naruto swiftly materialized behind Gaara. The blonde also noticed that Tayuya was marginally taller than him. He was slightly larger than Gaara. Now, I think it's best if we don't fight each other until I say so. Asking the blonde a few glares, Tayuya said, "Who are you?" "The captain." Naruto still had to get used to being called captain. "Yeah, actually." He extended his hand and said, "Name's Uzumaki Naruto." Tayuya gave Naruto's hand a fleeting glance before choosing to ignore it. "Tayuya, I already met the others of our team. I want to know, actually, if you're fit to be our leader, since you're a Chunin and all." Hehehe. It was obvious to all that the snicker was false. "You know, Tayuya, right? I'm not very friendly against people who try to destroy my home. I don't know why the old man saw it fit to make you a Konoha shinobi, but you're still gonna have to prove to me whether I can trust you." He then became rather glum. "You'd do well to behave." Tayuya blinked and staggered backward, utterly unprepared for killing intent of this kind emanating from this carefree guy. And she had to say it. She was starting to think that this man might have killed Kimimaro. Wah. She clenched her fists, attempting to extricate herself from the intent. She did so only partially. She spat out, "Pretty impressive. For a Chunin." That is to say, she managed to spit forth. Naruto could see through all of it. Her confidence, her hesitation, her pride, and then he laughed. He laughed aloud. To Yuya, I think we're going to have a lot of fun. Naruto spoke those words with his back to Yuya, and her eyes grew wide. Furthermore, she was simply gazing at him in front of her. This guy moves fast, with a, "Are you kidding me?" expression. Naruto's other subordinates turned to face the blonde.
That's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this great story. See you in the next one.